Good morning to you at 7 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilf, good morning from me as well, and also a Happy New Year.
Ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro will appear in a New York court later today following his capture by US Special Forces over the weekend.
Keir Starmer's New Year pledge to ease the cost of living as he insists that he will still be Prime Minister by this time next year.
A British teenager is confirmed as one of the 40 people killed in the horrific fire at a Swiss bar on New Year's Eve.
Also today, we'll be speaking to the dancer Oti Mabuse about food fads fuelled by TikTok.
The Strictly stars calling for people to ignore nutrition advice shared on social media as research shows just 2.1% of it is accurate.
Hello, good morning, and a Happy New Year from us. It's our first programme of the new year. It's great to be back with you. Thanks for joining us. And look, we've returned to the most extraordinary news story because in the early hours of Saturday, Donald Trump sent US commandos into Venezuela and captured the president.
And we're going to be unpacking it all. Who's running Venezuela now? Could other countries follow suit? And why did Donald Trump do it in the first place?
Because, look, this is an image for the ages. The Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, leader of a sovereign country, captured and taken, along with his wife, from his compound in Caracas to the US. He's due to appear in a New York court today, charged with drug trafficking and running a narco-terrorist regime, charges that he does deny.
This was, of course, a crazy operation, months in the planning, shocking in its audacity. So let's take you through how it unfolded. Well, several explosions rang out in Caracas early on Saturday.
Those explosions were also heard in 3 states, Miranda, Aragua and La Guaira. That's according to the Venezuelan government.
Maduro was taken from the Fuerte Tiuna military base in Caracas and flown to the US Iwo Jima warship stationed at the time in the Caribbean.
And then he was flown to New York on Saturday night. And look, Maduro and his wife are still being held in the detention centre in Brooklyn. They're due to appear in court today facing those narco-terrorism charges.
Our correspondent James Matthews has all the very latest for us from New York.
Sunday night, and Donald Trump headed back to Washington. It had been a working holiday in Florida for a president working on what he does next. Aboard Air Force One, Trump talked Colombia and its president.
Now, we have a very sick neighbor. It's not a neighbor, but it's close to a neighbor, and that's Venezuela. It's very sick. Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long?
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it very long.
So there will be an operation by the U.S. and
it sounds good to me.
It sounds like
and by the way, you have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together.
At a jail in Brooklyn, there is high security for an inmate of the highest profile. Nicolas Maduro is in the Metropolitan Detention Center, the MDC, home to the VIP, pending his appearance in court. They brought him by boat, then by plane, a prisoner in the hands of his captors. There was a helicopter transfer and the perp walk, a president in handcuffs in the company of the co-accused, his wife, Celia Flores. In the wake of what happened on Saturday, the United States has again addressed what happens now. Donald Trump had said they'd run Venezuela. It prompted defiance from the Venezuelans left in power. From the US Secretary of State, there was a preview of discussions to come.
Ultimately, we hope this leads to a holistic transition all the way around in Venezuela, societal, political, all of that. We're in favor of all of that. But right now, we have to take the first steps, and the first steps are securing what's in the national interest of the United States and also beneficial to the people of Venezuela.
In Venezuela, the interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, has called America's action an atrocity that violates international law. It is a difficult starting point for a difficult conversation. Venezuela's military will have an influence on how its country reacts. If America wants compliance, it didn't necessarily hear it at an army news conference.
Todo el pueblo de Venezuela.
The people of Venezuela have been witness to a brutal aggression against our sovereignty.
Contra cualquier país.
The world needs to be on guard because if it was Venezuela yesterday, it could be anywhere tomorrow.
Down, down with occupation.
If Nicolas Maduro could hear out of his prison window, he might have heard the sound of protest at what brought him here. Some members of the US Congress have again questioned the legality of the US action. The leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives is calling it an act of war. That view found an echo on the street. The court process for Nicolas Maduro starts with a transfer from here to a courthouse in Manhattan. He faces a number of charges, drug running among them. It's a prosecution that means much to him. It's a story that means so much more. After Venezuela, Team Trump has laid out a wish list for countries on its wrong side. It has provoked increased concern far beyond Venezuela at a president whose actions have spoken as loud as his words. James Matthews, Sky News, in New York.
Extraordinary story, and I feel like a lot of people are just wondering why on earth Donald Trump has done this in the first place. Of course, he said that, look, it's about drugs. They've got those narco charges that Maduro is up against, but it's hard to ignore the amount of oil Venezuela has too.
Yeah, a lot of this is about the natural resources, as you said, Sophie. We just want to break down some of the numbers on this. Natural resources that Venezuela has, oil in particular. So this is a chart of proven oil reserves by country. So this isn't stuff you can just get overnight. It would take a lot of investment and time to drill it. But this is what the explorers have found and discovered and sits under the ground. I think a lot of people were always very well aware of the amount that sits under the surface in the Middle East. You've got Iraq, you've got Iran there, Saudi Arabia, of course, they're near the top. But Venezuela tops all of them. 300 billion barrels of proven oil reserves under the ground, more than any other country out there, which I think has surprised some. But it's not just about how much they've got, it's how much they're failing to extract. So for context, Sophie, Saudi Arabia, of their 270 billion barrels, are producing about 10 million barrels per day. Well, how much is Venezuela producing per day of their 300 billion? Let's have a look. Only 1 million, a tenth of how much Saudi Arabia is doing, despite having more reserves. And if you wanted to look into that sort of altruistic argument that the US might make, that they're trying to help this country be all it can be, help lift a lot of their people out of poverty, you look back to the 60s and 70s when extraction techniques were way worse than they are today. They were producing 3.5 million barrels a day back then. Today, it's only 1 million, and you can see quite clearly when it started to drop off, when Hugo Chavez took over. It became a dictatorship with obviously communist leanings, and then Maduro, it's really collapsed in recent years. If we just go back to the other chart as well, just wanted to close with a different point. They've got the most in the world. This is just oil, by the way. There's quite a lot of gold as well, less proven, but there's certainly a lot there, potentially some rare earths, with a population of only about 30 million people. I say only because it's a smaller population than Saudi, a lot smaller than somewhere like Iran. So this country really could be an incredibly wealthy country if it wanted to be, with a much higher GDP per capita. The final point I'll just say is most of these countries with all the oil, of course, are in an organisation called OPEC. The US, for example, produces more than Saudi Arabia. They produce 13.5 million barrels a day with a much lower base, because Western countries, if they've got oil, they tend to just say, well, let's produce all we can. Why wouldn't we? A lot of these other nations in OPEC have artificially kept production lower, restricted supply, to try and boost the oil price and make more money for themselves. Well, it's an election year coming up in the US, midterms to come. We all know how important cost of living is. If the biggest country in OPEC, Venezuela, founding member of OPEC back in 1960, is taken out of OPEC and they start to produce a lot more, it's likely to ease oil and gas prices around the world, particularly in the US. And I think, Sophie, that is something that will be on the mind of the US president as he faces those all-important midterms, and we all know how important cost of living is.
I mean, it's so stark, just looking at that graph there, you know, with Venezuela top of everyone in the world. It doesn't feel like a coincidence, does it? I mean, is this about the US like, frankly, just trying to get its hands on Venezuelan oil?
I think they definitely want to take some of it, of course, but it's not that they're seizing it. I think they'll pay for it. That's our expectation. There's a long way to go on this. I think the trigger, though, is more about who they didn't want to take control of it. Since we showed there when Chavez took over, then Maduro, Russia's had their claws in Venezuela for a long period of time. But the Cold War was over, Russia was kind of weak, Venezuela was kind of weak, they weren't that bothered. As Russia's gotten very weak and its focus has been elsewhere in Ukraine, China's got their claws in. And the US, I think, there was a meeting between Xi Jinping and Maduro last year. There was a Chinese delegation in Venezuela at the time discussing things with the Venezuelan regime. And I think what the US couldn't allow was their big rival for the next decade, for the next 100 years potentially, China, getting their hands on these extraordinary resources in their backyard. And I think that was the final trigger. It was more about stopping somebody else controlling it than necessarily just pocketing it all, even if they want to control what is done with it as opposed to just put it in their back pocket.
It's extraordinary. It really is extraordinary stuff. And, of course, it poses a problem for the UK government back here as well. We're going to be trying to talk to the minister in about 5 minutes' time or so to try and find out, is this action that the UK backs? Because at the minute it feels pretty unclear. It's
pretty hard, isn't it, for them to sitting on the fence at the moment. It's breaking international law, but they've got to keep President Trump on side. Well, it is back to school vibes here in Westminster. Parliament returns, and later this morning the PM will make a New Year pitch to voters with a promise to ease the cost of living. So
Keir Starmer's also insisted he will still be number 10 this time next year, despite, I think, what we're describing as a bit of discontent from some in his party. Mari is here. I mean, they wouldn't describe it as a reset, but, it's always, new year, new me, all that stuff, right? What's going on with Keir Starmer?
Absolutely. It's reset number 5. So Keir Starmer's going to be in Berkshire at a community centre, and he's going to be talking about basically how great this year is going to be. He's going to say that he's going to ease the cost of living, he's going to deliver on the change that people have voted for, and essentially there's going to be some light at the end of the tunnel. Labour MPs don't feel that way, voters don't feel that way, but he's hoping, essentially, he's got 4 months to try and turn it around. So what we're expecting to hear from him today is we're expecting him to try and highlight the fact that the government chose to freeze rail fares and try and point to that and say this is a direct reduction in the cost of living by a choice that he has made as Prime Minister. He's going to say this is the year the country turns the corner and that the public will start to feel the change they voted for. That's the kind of line we're expecting to hear. He's also going to be taking questions from the media, so Beth Rigby, our political editor, will be there as well, asking him all those tricky questions. The difficulty is we are now facing down the barrel of the May local elections. Scotland, Wales and lots of places in England. If you look at the polling, it's not looking good for Labour. The PM is trying to argue that actually the local elections are local only, they're not a referendum on Westminster, and therefore there's nothing to see here. Now, nobody is buying that, clearly. But that is what he is trying to argue. And he is trying to say that actually, if they try and start talking about changing or deposing leaders, actually they're going to go down the same route as the Tory party, which only ensued more chaos, and it will be a gift to Nigel Farage. Now, realistically, that's a warning to his backbenchers who may have spent the Christmas break, rather than stuffing their face full of turkey, actually talking about plotting to get rid of him after the May local elections. And he's saying, be careful what you wish for.
Really interesting stuff. I'm sure there'll be a bit of pressure as well over the position on Venezuela as well, right, Mari? Thank you.
I think it's interesting to make this as something he wants to be measured on this year. I think he'll get much better news on inflation in the raw numbers. But will people, after a year and a half of not feeling it, feel that by May? Probably not. It's not like prices are going to collapse overnight. It's just inflation will come down a bit. So it's one of those things I think he'll be able to say with the data, oh, look, I've proven something, but will it really connect with people is the question.
I mean, they talk about deliverables all the time, aren't they? And some of those might come, but it's, as you say, whether he's around to see it.
Now, Sky News has gone out on the beat with Greater Manchester Police as they change tactics to crack down on child exploitation. They're teaming up with social workers, going out on patrol together and sharing information to protect the vulnerable.
Police, open the door, we're going to open it.
Well, Greater Manchester Police say they want to win back public trust after independent reviews found historical failings over the force's response to child sexual exploitation cases. Our Home editor, Jason Farrell, joins us live. Jason, this is a story you've been covering for a very long time. Just give us a background of what's happening here.
So the background is that there have been 3 really damning reports into GMP. Greater Manchester Police have failed children over a number of years. The last one, which came out in January 2024, was looking at Operation Span in Rochdale, and it said that girls had been left at the mercy of grooming gangs for years. It said there'd been serious failings, and Steve Watson, the Chief Constable, came out and said, look, we've changed, we've improved. There was a report last year that kind of backed that up from the Inspectorate and from Ofsted, saying they have made significant improvements. But we went along to see what they're doing, and one of the things they've done is called Operation Make Safe, where they actually train hotel owners to call up and report intelligence. If they see, for example, an older man checking in with an underage girl, they will then call the police. So we've got an example of one of those phone calls which we can play you now.
Police emergency.
We've got 2 young ladies from a care home that have shown up reporting that there's a man with an underage girl that have managed to gain access to one of our rooms. We've confirmed that they gained access to the hotel. So there's a 14-year-old girl with an overage man in the hotel, and we need the police to come.
So we'd actually play you footage of, and you just saw a little bit of it there, what happens after that phone call. The police turn up at the door, they knock on this hotel door, and they arrest the man inside for drugs charges and for attempting to have sex with an underage girl. And the other thing that they are also starting to do, as you mentioned in the lead-in, was trying to work with social workers. They have what's called a complex safeguarding hub, where the social workers and the police are in the same office, they have the same briefings, and they actually go out on patrol together. And what you see then is the social workers who know the backgrounds of the children who are out in perhaps vulnerable situations, talking to those children, trying to gain intelligence. And one of the social workers we spoke to was a guy called Anthony Green, and we can hear what he says about how this helps them.
With traditional social work, we usually see them at home or in their schools, but seeing them in these environments is really important for us as social workers to understand the harms and the risks that they may come and encounter.
So, I mean, what they're saying is that they've now protected, over the last 2 years, 270 children. They've disrupted 360 criminal activities that might be child sexual exploitation or child criminal exploitation, such as getting children to sell drugs or to get involved in shoplifting. And they say that this is a much more proactive way of policing. They accept this has been a blind spot for Greater Manchester Police, but they're trying to suggest...
blind spot? Has it been a blind spot for everyone? Are they the only ones now trying this?
No, I think this has been a blind spot across the board. Yeah. And I think social workers and police have always worked together, but not in this way. And I think this is in itself unique.
Mm-hmm. Jason, great stuff. Thank you.
It's our first show of 2026. And of course, at these points in the year, the government always tries to kind of refocus, work out what their priorities are, etc., etc. We've had a big interview with Keir Starmer. And I think it's very clear that they want to focus on the domestic. So cost of living, that's why Keir Starmer is out and about talking about that today. And another issue that so many voters really do care about an awful lot, which is migration as well. That's the news story the government wants to talk about today. But of course, as we've seen so often over the last year, foreign affairs and international crises have also dominated and, I guess, sucked the government, and Keir Starmer in particular, into talking about international issues as opposed to the domestic, which they clearly feel are most likely to win them the next election. And once again, I think that's happening today. We're joined by the Home Office Minister, Mike Tapp, here to talk about migration, which we will get to, of course. But look, there is, I think it's fair to say, an extraordinary international situation unfolding. Are you comfortable with Donald Trump sending commandos into Venezuela and capturing the president?
Well, what I say is he's not wasn't a legitimate president. He was a dictator who tortured prisoners, used sexual violence, intimidated dissidents. So I, like Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper and the British government, shed no tears whatsoever that this man is no longer in charge of Venezuela, which makes the people of Venezuela safer. And what we need to see now is a safe, peaceful, democratic process to install a new government there.
I'm not disputing what you say, but, you know, the UK, the US would agree that, you know, Maduro is a bad man. But is that where we are now? That the US is effectively the world's policeman and they can just go around taking out people that they don't like?
Well, this is now for the United States, we're talking legality here, to lay out its legal basis for the actions that it's taken. And we're in conversations, and there'll be more with the United States and with our close allies to come to a conclusion on that. But where we are at this point is that we are not displeased that this man is no longer in charge, that we 100% respect an international rules-based system and legality, and we're not pressured by social media and commentators to ensure that we are quick in our response. It's about diplomacy, it's about talking to our allies and the United States, and there'll be more to come.
What facts are you waiting to establish?
Well, look, there's...
Because we know that the commandos went in, they arrested the guy who was leading the country in cuffs, and we've also heard from Donald Trump as well talking about other countries too.
Look, Sophie, I've been in war theatres myself, and we do know that operations are complex, and we call it the fog of war. So it's about ensuring we have all the facts, that we talk to our allies and the United States, and then lay out a position clearly. And we will see, by the way, Sophie, and we will see later today, well, an application has gone into the Speaker for a statement from the Foreign Secretary later today, so there may well be more detail on that.
If there is a UN Security Council vote, how will the UK vote?
Well, look, these are hypotheticals at this point, and like I said, there is a statement later today in the House that may well give more details on that. But at this point, it's about getting all the facts, speaking with our allies, understanding the United States, and it's their responsibility to lay out the legal basis for this action, and then we'll see more. But what we don't need to do is comment immediately and within a day or two on social media and in the news. It doesn't mean we're not going to say more.
The Times are saying that you would abstain if there's a UN Security Council vote.
Well, I'm not familiar with that reporting. We've got more to come into the House today, and of course our conversations with our allies are ongoing, and we've been really clear that we respect international law, and that will continue.
Why do you think Donald Trump did it?
This is for Donald Trump to answer, and I think he has said in his press conference, which I watched with interest, around narco-terrorism and that threat. But again,
do you
this
believe
is
that
for
though?
the United States.
I just want to show you an image, a graphic that we've been running on the programme today, that shows very, very clearly that Venezuela has more oil in the ground than any other country. Are you really saying that is a coincidence, and the reason that Donald Trump's done this is because of drugs?
I can't speak for Donald Trump, and it's for...
I mean, look at that, come on. Look, as you say, you know the theatre of war, as you say, you understand international conflicts. Oil, time and time again, seems to be a factor.
Sophie, people have said this about most modern conflicts, but again, it's not for me or the British government at this point to go into that detail. It's for the United States to lay out its legal basis for this operation.
But allies matter. Allies influence, they pressure. I mean, let's look at Greenland, for example, right? We've had the Danish Prime Minister calling on the United States to stop the threats against a historically close ally and against another country and another people who have very clearly said they are not for sale. If Donald Trump's moves against Greenland or against, Denmark, is that a different matter? Will the UK government condemn that?
First, I'll be really clear that allies do matter, which is why these careful diplomatic conversations behind the scenes are ongoing with the United States and with our European allies and Five Eyes partners. And we're not going to give a running commentary.
But what about Greenland?
When it comes to Greenland, Denmark and the United States, these are both NATO members, and I'm really proud that NATO has used discussion over division to ensure that these problems in the past
Can you at least just say Donald Trump should not, do the same in Greenland?
What I can say really clearly is I can't see this being any different to any previous conversations that need to be had between NATO members. And
I find it extraordinary that you can't just say flat out that Donald Trump needs to...
And I think the Venezuelan issue...
intervene on Greenland.
The Venezuelan issue
I find that extraordinary.
is obviously different to the Greenland issue. But that's for them to have those discussions. It's for NATO to have that solid anchor to ensure that there is no division here.
So you don't have an opinion on whether or not Donald Trump should go into Greenland?
Well, look, this isn't for me to sit here and talk about hypotheticals. We could go on forever.
This
like
is
that.
the Danish Prime Minister is talking about this. She's asked the US to step the threats. This is not a hypothetical.
And that's why it's really important that allies stand firm and ensure that discussions... And that's because we're not giving a running commentary on that. There'll be more in the House today in general, but of course...
But you can't say Donald Trump shouldn't invade Greenland.
Diplomacy is delicate, which means we're not here to give a running commentary in the news, unfortunately, as much as that would be fantastic for viewers, and on Twitter, but it's the end results that matter, and working together with our allies and sticking to international laws is what we stand for as a country.
OK. You're here to talk about migrant phones. You've got a new announcement today about new powers to take them. What was the idea? Yeah,
so look, I've worked against criminal gangs in the past, but also in counter-terrorism. So I've seen the difference that using these counter-terror-style powers can make to getting ahead of the criminals and the terrorists, not necessarily waiting for them to act. A part of that today gives us the powers to seize phones from those that are crossing the channel on small boats, so that we can gather that intelligence, which gives us more power to go after those vile smuggling gangs and essentially save lives in the channel and reduce people crossing.
You came into power like talking about smashing the gangs. It feels like you're talking a bit less about that specific phrase, we're going to smash the gangs. Is that because it's proven to be more difficult than you were hoping?
Well, we've conducted thousands of disruptions. We've taken out hundreds of criminal gangsters, but it doesn't end there. There's no silver bullet to this, which is why you've seen the most sweeping reforms in a generation to the asylum system, which makes it less attractive to come here, easier to deport and remove people. We're bringing in counter-terror powers, safe and legal routes. There's a lot going on here. We've deported 50,000. We're moving people out of hotels, but there's no silver bullet. And we're working hard, day in, day out, to secure the borders and also save lives in the Channel. OK, great to have you on. Thank you very much indeed, Mike Tapp, speaking to us. Thank you. Of course, we're going to be continuing the focus on Venezuela on the programme this morning. Wilfred will be speaking to a guest, trying to find out what is going on, who is the new leader and what next for the country.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome, Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think is really unusual? Mornings with Richard Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Welcome back. Let's remind you of the top stories. Ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is expected to appear in a Manhattan court later today following his capture by US Special Forces over the weekend. President Trump has suggested there may be military operations in other parts of South America, telling reporters Colombia's president is a sick man who won't be in power for long.
The British teenager Charlotte Niddam has been confirmed as one of the 40 people killed in the fire at a Swiss bar on New Year's Eve. Hundreds of people took part in a silent procession to the scene of the tragedy.
Prime Minister will attempt a New Year's reset with a pitch to voters this morning, focusing on how his government will bring down living costs. Sir Keir Starmer insists he will still be in the job this time next year, despite discontent among some backbenchers.
Now we've got a very sad update to bring you on the horrific fire that we saw on New Year's Eve. A British teenager has been confirmed as one of the victims who died in that fire at the Swiss ski resort. Authorities say they've now identified all 40 victims of the tragedy in Crans-Montana. The youngest was just 14.
Well, 15-year-old Charlotte Niddam, a joint British, Israeli and French national, previously attended Emmanuel College in Hertfordshire, and she was among the last group of victims identified by police.
The Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, shared this on social media. Terrible news that Charlotte Niddam has been identified as one of those killed in the Crans-Montana fire. My thoughts are with all her family and friends after this devastating loss.
Well, hundreds of mourners and first responders paid their respects by holding a silent procession through the streets to the site of the tragedy. Our correspondent Rob Harris spoke to some of those who attended.
It's a quiet little ski village. I mean, usually, there's lots of life. Now, since 3-4 days, we're all very sad.
I can imagine what happened here, and it's like a horror movie, but in real life.
You have friends?
Yes, I have friends in hospital right now, and friends who die.
How difficult is it to know what happened to them?
We could be us in here because when I have 15, I just go there too. So it could be us.
I came from 2 hours away because I felt very concerned. I was here at Christmas, and I just wanted to come back and put a candle.
A tragic story, that. Now, returning to another top story this morning, the ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro due to appear in a New York court today, coming after US forces captured the Venezuelan leader in Caracas and took him and his wife to the US. Donald Trump has said his current priority is to fix Venezuela rather than hold an election, and warned the US needs total access to its oil reserves. Let's bring in the Professor of Justice Studies at Liverpool Moores University and a Latin America expert, Dr. Julia Buxton. Dr. Buxton, thanks so much for joining us. I think the other new development today is that the vice president has taken over in Venezuela. This is someone deeply part of the Maduro regime. Is that significant in your eyes? And is it possible that someone who was just recently the ousted president's vice president will work closely with the US? Is that plausible in your eyes?
Right now, there has been no confirmation that the Venezuelan government, led by Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, is willing to work with the US under the terms that Donald Trump has set out. Let's be very clear that Donald Trump's created quite a bit of a mess here. Rather than going for a strategy of regime change, which would have involved significant US boots on the ground, what Trump's tried to do here is a very simple leadership decapitation. But if the US doesn't move very, very quickly, including by ensuring that there are imports coming into Venezuela and a very very secure environment for Venezuelan citizens, then this situation could actually disintegrate very, very quickly.
So is it significant to you to see the Vice President take power in the short term, i.e. there's not an immediate vacuum or not?
Well, I mean, Delcy Rodriguez at the moment, who has taken over, is, being presented as being the legitimate president of Venezuela currently, and there are no plans for any elections. So at the moment, it remains very unclear what the long-term strategy for governance in Venezuela is. Whereas Delcy Rodriguez is a very canny and experienced political actor, the extent to which she will be offering Venezuelan oil reserves and US access to Venezuela in the way that Donald Trump has set out is really not clear at this moment.
In terms of those arguments about what drove all this action in the first place and significant reserves of natural resources, oil in particular, is that for you the driving rationale on the US part? And to what extent does that relate also to the type of foreign leaders that Maduro was close to? Of course, historically President Putin, but increasingly President Xi Jinping.
Well, initially, the US was talking about Maduro as being a narco-terrorist, and we had all of these claims that Venezuela was exporting cocaine and fentanyl, which really has not been the case as far as the USDA, Drug Enforcement Administration, is concerned. So we seem to have this very kind of fabricated idea of narco-terrorism. The narrative moved very quickly thereafter towards oil. Yes, certainly Venezuela's oil is hugely, hugely important to the US, that opportunity for this kind of strategic access to Venezuela's oil. But right now, getting Venezuela's oil out of the ground is not a golden investment opportunity. We've got an oil glut at the moment on international markets. Prices aren't necessarily high, and it's going to take billions and billions to put Venezuela's oil industry back on a commercial footing. This is something that seems to have been underestimated by the Trump administration.
What do you think the implications are for respect for international law more globally going forward?
Well, this entire campaign, which has been conducted by the United States, has been undertaken really on the margins of international law and usually in flagrant violation of human rights law and the US Constitution. It is a very, very serious situation that the US has violated international law. I think we can be very, very clear on this. But the reality is that there are no sanctions, there's no mechanisms in order to compel another form of behaviour. So, as we've seen many other previous times, violating international law comes with no consequences.
Do you think the US's enemies will be scared by this extraordinary display of strength and, I think, precision, it's fair to say, or emboldened by the lack of respect for certain international rules and norms?
There'll certainly be a very, very serious concern with the way that the US has acted, in particular, for example, in Iran, where we're seeing some, very destabilising protests at the moment, and the worries and risks that there might be some kind of leadership takeout also in Iran. The reality is what Donald Trump's doing is very much in line with previous US policies. There's nothing particularly radical or dramatic here. The attempt to kind of really focus in on Colombia and President Gustavo Petro seems a very pointless and petty exercise at this current moment in time, given the elections coming up in Colombia. It's very much grandstanding by Trump. So there's lots of threats being dished out to various critics of Donald Trump across the Americas at the moment. And it is very, very certainly concerning that the US is being able to act in this way and might do so again in the future. But I think there's going to be a bigger backlash yet. Donald Trump needs to demonstrate that this can actually deliver results in Venezuela.
Just to wrap things up then, I mean, I'm interested, you said it wasn't that radical, what he's doing relative to US history, because I guess most of the reaction I have witnessed is to sort of frame this as the most crazy thing a US president has done this side of World War II. Is that not fair?
We have had a number of previous problems before in terms of US presidents and their actions across Latin America. The reality is that we've seen General Pinochet, we've had US interventions in Nicaragua, a long history of interventions in Central America. This isn't something new. Ronald Reagan went into Panama. But the key thing that we need to emphasize here is that we are seeing continuity in US foreign policy, but on steroids, in effect. The US still sees itself as being the kind of hemispheric leader, but this is being done with a very, very extreme level of force. But again, something that's been a constant theme in US history.
Dr. Buxton, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to have more analysis of what is going on in Venezuela, the geopolitical implications. Could it happen to other countries? Who is the new leader? There's so much to unpack here, isn't there?
Let's now get to the weather. And spoiler alert, if you haven't left the house yet, it's pretty darn cold. Nearly used a word I wasn't
Yeah, really cold. And this is all because of what is called, quite alarmingly, a polar vortex, which is bringing Arctic conditions to much of Europe. Lots of snow and ice warnings in place across the country, and also an amber cold health alert has been expanded to all regions of England, so it effectively means it's going to impact your health. It's in place until tomorrow.
Let's get more with meteorologist Claire Nasir. Claire, thanks so much for joining us. So just sum up quite how cold it will be today, but also the next few days. How long is it going to last?
We had a severe frost last night, temperatures sub-zero across the board. Where I live near Manchester, we've seen quite a lot of snow as well. So I was out first thing, slippery conditions, really unpleasant. But most of the snow, the highest snow levels have again been across much of Scotland, where there are amber warnings through this morning. So icy, cold or snowy and icy across most parts as we enter the first proper week of 2026. For some, that's great. For most, though, it is so cold outside. It's bitter, and that will continue through today before we see a feature move in tomorrow, bringing rain, sleet and snow yet again. So further warnings are likely to be issued.
We introduced you by saying this is all about a polar vortex. I've got no idea what a polar vortex is. So I was just wondering if you might be able to explain and say if that's what we're seeing here.
Sure. So there's various definitions of polar vortex. There's one which happens in our very upper atmosphere across the North Pole. It's a very fast-moving band of winds in the stratosphere. And some scientists connect that, and as it eases, opening almost like the freezer door of cold air seeping across Northern Europe. That actually hasn't happened yet, but we are looking at that. There's another one across North America, which actually produces very cold air. It digs down and allows these deep areas of low pressure to form, and that then interacts with our weather. The key thing is, I think, to be honest, the air is coming from the Arctic, hence the reason why we're seeing so many snow showers. Through the next few days, the winds will change, but because the air is so cold over us, we'll continue to see that rain turning to snow. And I was watching it yesterday, and certainly it feels Baltic out there. So yeah, lots of things playing out there, whether it's at the upper atmosphere, across the far north of North America, or the Arctic, and it's all influencing us.
And look, I'm one of these people, I'll be honest, who's quite excited at the thought of a bit of snow, but it can be quite dangerous. There's been what's been described as a cold health warning. So what is the advice for vulnerable people who might be worried about the cold weather?
Well, we know that when we get a real cold snap like this, it adds extra pressure to professional healthcare services. I've got an elderly lady who lives next to me. It's checking on those people. It's checking on your friends and family, and being careful yourself when you're out and about, because that air is frigid and it doesn't take much to get very cold. So it's making sure your friends and family have their heating on at a good level to keep those rooms really warm, and not to venture out until it ends. Here in the UK, we have a real plethora of different types of weather coming our way from every angle. And that means that we don't tend to get these really cold spells lasting too long. But before things resume near normal, we are expecting more winteriness.
Claire, thanks so much for joining us. Much appreciated. And by the way, be careful, as we've just said, and take all the necessary precautions. But if it is snowing where you are and you're enjoying it, please send us your pics. Email us mornings@sky.uk. Follow us @Ridge and Frost. We had a little bit of snow at the weekend.
Yeah.
It was lovely. Great fun. Although I have to say, it was almost too cold. You couldn't enjoy it for that long.
I don't mind it because it's bright. If
Agreed.
It's been beautiful. It's been beautiful. And if you have any beautiful pictures, as Wilf says, we want to see them. And with that, we should bring you the very latest weather forecast as well, shouldn't we?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
So it's cold, as we've been saying, that cold weather continuing this week. And as we were discussing, it's all the northerly winds bringing the Arctic air. And that, of course, makes it very cold, potentially snowy as well. So that means there are multiple weather warnings in force now Amber snow warnings across northern Scotland, where we're expecting some heavy snow showers, blizzard conditions and drifting snow as well, which could cause further disruption. We've got yellow snow and ice warnings across other parts of Scotland, Ireland, Wales and England. Wintry showers of snow, sleet and hail, which is going to be very windy around those coasts as well. And it's going to be a freezing cold start to the morning. Temperatures as low as minus double digits. The overnight wintry showers means a dusting of snow for some and a risk of ice as well. And of course, that leads into another very cold day. It will be dry though, and also quite sunny after any overnight freezing fog patches lift and clear, so it could be quite bright. Further wintry showers today, mainly across northern and eastern Scotland, Northern Ireland, eastern England, West Wales and southwest England. And then those showers will begin to ease this afternoon and the brisk northerly wind should ease as well. But there will be increasing cloud in the far northwest with rain, sleet and snow later on.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, Jackie's here. Happy New Year, Jackie.
Happy New Year to both of you, yes.
What have we got coming up?
Well, I tell you where it's going to be really chilly this morning, like really chilly. Manchester United's training ground.
Oh.
And maybe Man City's as well, but probably more so United. Tensions are really ramping up there, and Ruben Amorim, who was so sunny and sort of affable and amiable, is less so.
Excellent
now.
weather punning.
Yeah.
Loving it.
You're welcome.
I don't think he's been sunny and affable for a little while, though.
Yeah, I know. I think it's ramped up a little bit. He did not seem very happy yesterday post-match. I'm going to have the very latest from the Premier League as those tensions at Manchester United appear to build behind the scenes. And we'll have a couple of key goals for you too.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, what will you say next to Benjamin Netanyahu? In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent. I've interviewed some of America's most recognisable politicians. Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting.
Mr Walker, you're anti-abortion, but 2 women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir?
Connor, what did you say to the President? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents based in Washington, D.C. David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here.
Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism?
I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
The anger too, and the division.
Where are you from? From Sky News, UK.
Yeah.
Back up.
Mr. Navarro, can
Well, it's my... I'm allowed to ask questions, aren't I?
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Has your ego and ignorance, sir, cost Ukrainian lives?
David Cameron needs to worry about his own country, and frankly, he can kiss my ass.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody?
Free wherever you get your news.
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Do you fear a fourth indictment?
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Right, right, Jackie's here to chat all things sport this morning, and it felt like an awful lot happened when it came to the Premier League title race yesterday, right?
Well, it did, because there were so many matches.
Yeah.
There were 6. It was like hard to know, which kind of storyline to keep across. But this morning, I think we've got to first of all talk about Manchester United and the tensions that seem to be growing there, with Ruben Amorim sort of a bit disgruntled about people interfering in what he's trying to do with tactics, with January transfer targets and what they should be going for, and they just don't seem to be aligned. And he has sort of hinted, there's too much intrusion going on. And he did say yesterday, post-match, he said, I'm the manager, not just the coach. And then he sort of mic dropped and left the media conference, and everybody's left thinking, well, what does he mean?
Fishing to be fired.
Yeah.
Well, he said, I'll do my 18 months of my contract, more or less, and then I will move on. Or when someone else comes in, I will go.
But 18 months is a long time.
I know.
How can someone keep going after
It's hard to know how you would last that long if you are feeling that sort of upset with the situation. But Jamie Carragher doesn't really mince his words very often, and he definitely didn't yesterday after the match when United were held by Leeds United, a 1-1 draw, and that for them is only 1 win in 5. Great for Leeds, by the way, unbeaten in 7. But a 1-1 draw wasn't what they were after, and this is what Jamie Carragher had to say straight afterwards.
I don't think he is in any position whatsoever to be questioning the people who appointed him.
Why not?
Because he's not good enough. He's not good enough to be Manchester United's manager.
Anyway, so that's going to be, interesting day maybe at Manchester United, and how they sort of square this circle where they're not, Amorim's here and he's not realigned with those above him.
Wasn't a great day, Manchester, full stop.
No, it wasn't really. That's why it's probably still very chilly in Manchester.
Smile on
You're really smug. I mean, Arsenal must have been watching that and thinking, oh, here we go, Manchester City on their way to 3 points. And then up pops Enzo Fernandez in the 94th minute to do this. I mean, there wasn't any time to change the result after that. You have to say Chelsea did deserve it. There were changes made by stand-in coach Callum McFarlane at half-time. They fully deserved that goal was coming. But, of course, a massive goal that for Arsenal, massive goal. It keeps that 6-point cushion. It's 2 points dropped for sure for Pep. He knows it. The players knew it. The goalkeeper looked absolutely distraught. So 6 clear of Villa, 6 clear of Man City. That is a very good weekend for Arsenal.
Very good weekend. My worry going forward is Rodri's back.
Yeah.
If City click to all they can be, which usually requires Rodri to be there, then this is going to be unbelievable.
Well, they should.
Which they haven't done yet. Obviously.
They should have had more goals yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, there were missed opportunities for sure. But also missed opportunities for Chelsea too. And in the second half, they were so much better. Should we talk cricket overnight? Because while most people were sleeping, it was going on. I know it sort of doesn't matter to a lot of people now because the Ashes is gone. But my personal take on it, as a former sports person, who's messed up the first 2 events or something, you kind of want to finish strongly and you want to show people and not be humiliated. And Joe Root was just immense last night.
You see, this is what gets it for me. He was incredible, and I was so 160, and of course he made the century previously as well. And for me, he's such an inspirational guy. He seems like a lovely guy.
Yeah,
he's been brilliant. He's classy.
He's really classy,
and he's had so much thrown at him in Australia about people saying that he can't bat over there.
Yeah,
and just for him to prove them wrong felt like a big deal as well.
But you know what's quite irritating, and frustrating is probably a better word, is Joe Root went on to get 160, brilliant. Harry Brook, who's been, I guess, disappointing in this series because he's never really kicked on, he was sort of on course for a century, but was out for 84. And then Ben Stokes was out for a duck, bowled again by Mitchell Starc for the 14th time in his career. I mean, they just see Ben Stokes and go, Mitchell, get in there. And, he gets him every time. It's been bad for the bowlers since, for England's bowlers. 384 all-out England. Australia go in. The bowlers have not done it. They just haven't been good enough. 165 for 2 at the close, which is actually just a few moments ago. And both of those Australian wickets were taken by Ben Stokes. And he can't do it all. No. He can't do it all by himself. So, I mean, they're still obviously in with the chance of winning this Test match, but they need to clean up very quickly.
We're going to talk a bit about the darts next hour. So looking forward to that with Luke Littler. But we also just wanted to get... We've already discussed this a little bit on Cheat Sheet. New Year's resolutions.
Oh, you're asking what my New Year's resolution is? No, absolutely don't make them.
Do you not? I love it, Jackie.
Because if I go that dry Jan thing, I literally...
I agree.
The stress of it breaks me within a day. I mean, I've already broken it.
So then dry Jan becomes start on New Year's Day Jan.
No, once it's broken, it's broken. That's just messing around.
I love it. I love the attitude.
You know, I saw a great thing on Instagram which said, I was really good last year, so my New Year's resolution is just to be as good again as last year.
Oh.
And I don't mean like, you know, at my job or anything, just as a whole person. And that wasn't what I wrote, it was what someone else wrote. I thought, oh, I'm having that.
That's a good one.
It was written
I love
by some sassy woman. I thought, oh.
The reason that we're looking at New Year's resolutions, of course, is the time of the year, obviously, but also apparently the most common financial resolution is nearly a third of working people want to cut their monthly spending in 2026. So we're talking New Year's resolutions. We want to hear yours as well. If you've got a New Year's resolution that you've made that you're struggling to keep, let us know mornings@sky.uk.
What did you say? What's Friday called?
Quitters Friday.
Quitters Friday.
What, this Friday?
Yeah,
this Friday.
This coming Friday.
Well, what were your New Year's resolutions?
Well, mine was just to be more healthy, generally.
Just to be more hairy?
Healthy.
Also more hairy. You're doing well with that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
both. And generally be more healthy, which is going to be hard to enforce, I think, as well. We'll see how long the hairiness lasts.
Yeah, you stuck to your bananas at breakfast, though.
Yeah, I
so...
had just a banana, 2 bananas for breakfast. Feeling pretty peckish already, though.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Have you finished that sandwich of yours? I might finish it for you.
You're not getting it yet.
What was your resolution?
My New Year's resolution is always to read more books than I read last year.
Which
so
is
to read 12 books is my one.
You've been successful on that for quite a run now.
A couple of years, yeah, it's good. Let us know what yours are as well. Email us mornings@sky.uk. Coming up, of course, we are going to have an awful lot more on the situation in Venezuela.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Good morning, it is 8 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Bridge and Frost.
With Sophie and Wilfred, a very good morning from me as well and Happy New Year.
The ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro will appear in a New York court later today after he was captured by US special forces over the weekend.
Keir Starmer's New Year pledge to ease the cost of living as he insists that he will still be Prime Minister by this time next year.
A British teenager is confirmed as one of the 40 people killed in the horrific fire at a Swiss bar on New Year's Eve.
Also today, we're speaking to the dancer Ousted Mabuse about food fads fueled by TikTok.
So the Strictly Star is calling for people to ignore nutrition advice shared on social media. Research shows just 2.1% of it is accurate.
A very good morning and Happy New Year from us. Our first programme back of the new year. Great to be back with you. And we've returned to one of the most extraordinary news stories imaginable because, of course, on the early hours of Saturday morning, President Trump sent US commandos into Venezuela and captured President Maduro.
So we'll be unpacking it all. Who's running Venezuela now? Could other countries be next? And why did Donald Trump do it in the first place? Because, look, this is an image for the ages. The Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro captured and taken along with his wife from his compound in Caracas to the US. He's due to appear in that New York court today, charged with drug trafficking and running a narco-terrorist regime, charges he denies.
It was, of course, an extraordinary operation, months in the planning, shocking in its audacity and execution. And let's take you through how it all unfolded. Well, several explosions rang out in Caracas early on Saturday. Explosions
were also heard in the states of Miranda, Aragua and Liguria. That's according to the Venezuelan government.
Maduro was taken from the Fuerte Tiuna military base in Caracas and flown to the USS Iwo Jima warship, which was stationed in the Caribbean.
And then he went to New York on Saturday night. Well, Maduro and his wife are now being held in Brooklyn. They're due to appear in court today, facing narco-terrorism charges.
Here is our US correspondent, James Matthews, with all the details you need from New York.
Sunday night, and Donald Trump headed back to Washington. It had been a working holiday in Florida for a president working on what he does next. Aboard Air Force One, Trump talked Colombia and its president.
Now, we have a very sick neighbor. It's not a neighbor, but it's close to a neighbor, and that's Venezuela. It's very sick. Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long?
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it very long.
So there will be an operation by the U.S. and
it sounds good to me.
It sounds like
and by the way, you have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together.
At a jail in Brooklyn, there is high security for an inmate of the highest profile. Nicolas Maduro is in the Metropolitan Detention Center, the MDC, home to the VIP, pending his appearance in court. They brought him by boat, then by plane, a prisoner in the hands of his captors. There was a helicopter transfer and the perp walk, a president in handcuffs in the company of the co-accused, his wife, Celia Flores. In the wake of what happened on Saturday, the United States has again addressed what happens now. Donald Trump had said they'd run Venezuela. It prompted defiance from the Venezuelans left in power. From the US Secretary of State, there was a preview of discussions to come.
Ultimately, we hope this leads to a holistic transition all the way around in Venezuela, societal, political, all of that. We're in favor of all of that. But right now, we have to take the first steps, and the first steps are securing what's in the national interest of the United States and also beneficial to the people of Venezuela.
In Venezuela, the interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, has called America's action an atrocity that violates international law. It is a difficult starting point for a difficult conversation. Venezuela's military will have an influence on how its country reacts. If America wants compliance, it didn't necessarily hear it at an army news conference.
Todo el pueblo de Venezuela.
The people of Venezuela have been witness to a brutal aggression against our sovereignty. The world needs to be on guard, because if it was Venezuela yesterday, it could be anywhere tomorrow.
Down with occupation.
If Nicolas Maduro could hear out of his prison window, he might have heard the sound of protest at what brought him here. Some members of the US Congress have again questioned the legality of the US action. The leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives is calling it an act of war. That view found an echo on the street. The court process for Nicolas Maduro starts with a transfer from here to a courthouse in Manhattan. He faces a number of charges, drug running among them. It's a prosecution that means much to him. It's a story that means so much more. After Venezuela, Team Trump has laid out a wish list for countries on its wrong side. It has provoked increased concern far beyond Venezuela at a president whose actions have spoken as loud as his words. James Matthews, Sky News, in New York.
Absolutely extraordinary story. And of course, the key question is, why has Donald Trump done this? You've got some really interesting charts to show us on oil.
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes down to their natural resources in Venezuela, and in particular, their oil. This first chart we've got for you is proven oil reserves. So it would take a lot of time and investment to get all of this out. But this is the reserves that exist by different countries. And as has become clear to all over the weekend, Venezuela tops the list. A lot of people, of course, aware of how much is in the Middle East, countries there like Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia have about 270 billion barrels of oil under the ground. Venezuela tops that, tops everyone at 300 billion. But I think it's worth pointing out, relatively speaking, how much they are then producing per day, how much of it they're actually extracting. Well, just for context, Saudi Arabia, second on the list there in terms of reserves, is doing 10 million barrels per day. How much for Venezuela? Only 1 million, despite having more reserves than anyone. And if you wanted to take the sort of altruistic argument that the US might say if they're doing this for the Venezuelan people, what the US would point to is, back in the 60s and 70s, when extraction techniques were far less dominated than they are today. Back then, they were taking out of the ground 3.5 million barrels per day. Today, down at 1 million, massively underperforming their potential, and quite clear as well to see where it fell off a cliff. President Chavez came to power, the country became an autocracy, and indeed a communist-leading one, and then, of course, Maduro took over, and since then you've seen how much oil they're actually extracting fall off a cliff, down to just 1 million barrels per day. If we go back to the other chart as well, it's worth pointing out, they've got the biggest reserves of oil in the world, and by the way, a lot of gold, potentially a lot of other minerals as well, less proven but still significant there. And it's a population of only about 30 million. So the population smaller than Saudi Arabia, a lot smaller than a country like Iran. So if they really wanted to harness those resources by GDP per capita, they could be a very wealthy nation indeed. I think it's also just worth pointing out who all of the countries are that appear on this list of the countries with the most oil reserves around the world. Most of them are in an organisation called OPEC. The US, for example, is in fact the biggest daily producer, 13.5 million barrels a day compared to Saudi's 10, more than Saudi Arabia, despite having much smaller reserves, because countries like the US, Norway, if we were looking at gas as well, Canada, they tend to just produce as much as they possibly can. Why wouldn't you? Whereas a lot of these other countries don't do that. They suppress their production, keep global supply down, force prices up, and of course, in a year when the US has elections coming up, the midterms in November, that's something that the US would probably quite like to reverse. And if you took the key founding member, Venezuela, of OPEC, when it was founded back in 1960, out of that organisation and they start to produce a lot more, it will take time to do this, of course. That could have quite a big effect on oil prices globally. It could bring them down. That, Sophie, I think, is something that a lot of Western leaders would welcome, as we've seen the impact that inflation and high oil gas prices have on incumbent governments in recent years.
I mean, it's extraordinary. I think that chart, that one there, just showing the amount of oil that Venezuela has tells its own story, really. I mean, is this about the US, frankly, just wanting to get its hands on Venezuelan oil?
Yeah, I think definitely they'd like to see more extracted, US companies be involved in that, more exported to the US. But I don't think we're talking about just taking it as if it was their own. And I think that's important just to dwell on as well. It's not so much seizing it, but it's preventing one other big player and rival of theirs, China, from doing the same. You know, everyone's been aware since Chavez, since Maduro, Russia's had their kind of claws in to Venezuela. But, you know, the Cold War was dead. Russia was fairly weak, Venezuela was fairly weak, so it didn't bother them too much. What they really want to avoid is what started to happen in the last couple of years. As Russia's been distracted by Ukraine, China have got their claws in, and increasingly there was a meeting between President Xi and President Maduro last year. There was a Chinese delegation on the ground in Venezuela having meetings with Maduro as this all unfolded. And what the US can't put up with is Venezuela being strong and being under the thumb of their big rival for the next decade, for the next century, with all of those natural resources on their backyard. I think that was a trigger for the actions that we've seen, was having to prevent China from doing what the US is basically now doing.
So on the programme this morning, we're trying to answer why Donald Trump did it. We're also trying to answer the question of whether other countries could be next. And we know, of course, the US president has spoken about Colombia, for example. There's also been concerns over Greenland, with the Danish Prime Minister calling on the US to stop the threats against a historically close ally. I spoke to the UK Minister, the Home Office Minister, Mike Tapp, about this a short time ago. Just listen to what he had to say on Greenland.
We're not going to give a running commentary.
But what about Greenland?
When it comes to Greenland, Denmark and the United States, these are both NATO members, and I'm really proud that NATO has used discussion over division to ensure that these problems in the past
Can you at least just say Donald Trump should not, do the same in Greenland?
What I can say really clearly is I can't see this being any different to any previous conversations that need to be had between NATO members. And
I find it extraordinary that you can't just say flat out that Donald Trump needs to.
And I think the Venezuelan issue,
intervene on Greenland.
The Venezuelan issue
I find that extraordinary.
Is obviously different to the Greenland issue, but that's for them to have those discussions. It's for NATO to have that solid anchor to ensure that there is no division here.
And one does sort of wonder what the message is there to sort of other allies, and the message really is to President Trump. And I think the other thing people are pointing to a lot is there hasn't been a joint concerted response from all of the sort of other NATO members, and it's therefore a little bit fractured, which is, not something that would be a big deterrent going forward.
Yeah, we know, Mike Tapp said that there is going to be likely to be a statement on this from the Foreign Secretary later in the House, that more might be said on it, how the UK behave if there's a UN Security Council vote, for example, a very, very live issue at the minute. So it feels like there's going to be an awful lot more developments on this today.
On the domestic front back here, of course, back-to-school vibes here in Westminster with Parliament returning. And later this morning, the Prime Minister will make a New Year's pitch to voters with a promise to try and ease the cost of living.
So Keir Starmer's also insisted he'll still be in number 10 this time next year, despite a bit of discontent from some in his party. We can talk to Mari. So a cost of living focus for 2026.
Yes, so the Prime Minister is speaking at an event today, and what he's going to say is, look, we're going to give you the change that you voted for. Hang on in there. Yes, you've been waiting 18 months, but it's not much longer to wait now. And so what he's going to argue is that he wants to draw attention to the government's decision to freeze rail fares. And he wants to point to that and say this is a direct decision that we have made and that I have made as Prime Minister to reduce our cost of living. Let me show you what I've done for you, essentially. We're expecting him to say this is the year the country turns the corner and that the public will start to feel the change they voted for. The difficulty is that the timing of this comes where we still know that Labour MPs are quite openly discussing getting rid of him and thinking about who might be replacing him as Prime Minister after the May local elections. So he's essentially got a kind of 4-month period now in which he needs to win over voters but also win over his own backbenchers, even his own ministers, and persuade them that actually they're better off sticking with him than rolling the dice on another. And what he is arguing is he's saying, I'm going to be PM in 2027, and actually, if people start to try and chop and change leaders, we're going to end up like the Tories. It's going to be a gift to Nigel Farage, and that creates more political danger for us on the left. So he's going to do a mixture of a warning, really, to his MPs and even to voters to an extent, but also a bit of encouragement as well, and saying, actually, I'm going to make your lives better. So that's the kind of revamp for 2026. Beth Rigby, our political editor, is going to be there asking him questions, and as you were saying, Sophie, most likely he'll be asked about Venezuela as well.
It's not a very sort of bullish thing to have to do, is it? To say, if you try and bring me down, it's bad for us. It's a very sort of last chance saloon pitch, isn't it? But anyway, we shall see. Mari, great stuff. Thank you.
Now, a British teenager has been confirmed as one of the victims killed in that awful fire at a Swiss ski resort on New Year's Eve. So authorities say that they have now identified all 40 victims of the tragedy that unfolded in Crans-Montana. The youngest was just 14.
Well, 15-year-old Charlotte Needham, a joint British, Israeli and French national, previously attended Emmanuel College in Hertfordshire, and she was among some of the final victims to be identified by Swiss police.
We've had a reaction from the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper. She shared this on social media to say, terrible news that Charlotte Needham has been identified as one of those killed in the Crans-Montana fire. My thoughts are with all her family and friends after this devastating loss.
Sky News has, well, we're going to have more on that throughout, the coming week as well, really, because it's going to be a big investigation on the part of Swiss authorities as to all of how that unfolded and what rules were or weren't followed by the owners of the bar. Now, Sky News has gone out on the beat with Greater Manchester Police as they change tactics to crack down on child exploitation. They're teaming up with social workers, going out on patrol together and sharing information to protect the vulnerable.
Police, open the door. I'm going to open it.
Well, Greater Manchester Police want to win back public trust after independent reviews found some historical failings over the force's response to child exploitation cases. Our Home editor Jason Farrell joins us live. Jason, you know, you've been following the story for a while. I think it's fair to say you've seen the kind of failings of the system, the awful failings of the system that have failed these vulnerable people. What's your take on what we're seeing here?
Yeah, we've done a number of reports looking into the failings of Greater Manchester Police, and there have been 3 independent reviews that have looked at historical failings. The last one was back in 2024, which basically looked at Operation Span, which was the failures of children in Rochdale, who this particular review said had kind of left children to the mercy of grooming gangs for years. So there's a lot of trust to win back. And one of the things, excuse me, my throat's
do you need a glass of water?
No, it'll be fine. I'll survive. But one of the things they've shown us, and they've invited us in to see the kind of thing they're doing, is to show how hotel workers, for example, are being trained to spot signs that they should be worried about, such as an older man checking in with a young underage girl, and to call the police. And we've been given examples, and I can play you one now, of hotel workers calling up the police and saying, look, there's a problem here. So let's have a listen.
Police emergency.
We've got 2 young ladies from a care home that have shown up reporting that there's a man with an underage girl that have managed to gain access to one of our rooms. We've confirmed that they gained access to the hotel. So there's a 14-year-old girl with an overage man in the hotel, and we need the police to come.
Yeah, so that call was made, and then the police turn up at the door, and you just saw the images there of the police knocking at the door. They find this man with a 14-year-old girl and arrest him, and also find him with drugs, and he is later charged with attempting to have sex with an underage child. So that's one thing. But the other thing they're doing is something called Operation Luca, where they're actually basically sharing an office with social workers, and they have like what's called a complex safeguarding hub. And they have joint briefings, but also the social workers go out on patrol with the police And obviously that helps them because social workers know the history of the children. So they go somewhere like Piccadilly Gardens where there is known, they say there are at least 40 known potential offenders in that area. They know what they look like, they know what the kids who are vulnerable look like, the social workers know their history, so they can talk to them. And we can hear from Anthony, who we went out with, who's one of the social workers.
With traditional social work, we usually see them at home or in their schools, but seeing them in these environments is really important for us as social workers to understand the harms and the risks that they may come and encounter.
Yeah, so it helps for the social workers as well. I mean, obviously, this is Greater Manchester Police trying to show that they are making changes here because they have had a lot of problems in the past. But they say, over the course of the last 2 years, they've protected 270 children. They've disrupted over 360 criminal activities. They've made a lot of arrests as well, some for serious charges such as rape. So this is Greater Manchester Police saying, look, we've had a blind spot here, but our eyes are open now.
Jason, great stuff. Thanks so much. As always, Jason Farrell.
Now, battery electric cars are expected to overtake diesels on Great Britain's roads by 2030. I think we can probably bring you a graph showing how the number of electric cars on the roads is going up, and you can see diesel plummeting. That's over just a period of so in just 4 years' time, it's expected to have more electric cars.
This analysis is coming from the New Automotive Group and saying London is likely to be the first UK city to become diesel-free, mostly to do with the introduction of the ultra-low emission zone. Of course, that's just diesel, doesn't mean petrol cars as well, but it is nonetheless a striking chart in showing the growth of electric cars and decline of diesel.
Yeah, it really shows that sort of dash for diesel in the 2000s, well and truly over.
Yeah, exactly, with all the scandals that followed. Right, returning now to our top story. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro expected to appear before a New York court today on narco-terrorism charges, which, of course, he denies. Let's get some reaction from the former head of the UK Diplomatic Service, the head of Chatham House, Sir Simon Fraser. Very good morning to you. Good to see you. So much to sort of unpack with this. The first question I have for you is how surprised you were when you saw this extraordinary bit of action unfold over the weekend.
Well, I don't think we were surprised that the Americans were going to do something because they'd been building up for it over a period of time. But what they did and how they did it and when it happened obviously was a shock to people, and it raises a huge number of questions about what's going to happen next.
Well, just dwell on what they did and how they did it. I mean, are we, because there are so many implications for what happens next, are we missing the point a little bit or not reflecting on it enough of the show of American might, or was it a show of actual Venezuelan Maduro weakness?
Well, it was both, really. I mean, they have been hostile to him for a long time because of his policies. They considered him illegitimate anyway. And they took dramatic action. And that was a show of power, obviously. And there are two things. You've already alluded to this, actually, in your comment. The two things that come through in this. First of all, there's this determination by the Americans under Trump to dominate the hemisphere, to boss it in their region, which was very clear in the new national security strategy they published at the end of last year. And also, they want access to and control of resources, something you've also talked about. Those two things come together in the case of Venezuela.
You said they didn't see him as legitimate. A lot of the world didn't. How significant is that, and does it justify this sort of action?
Well, it's significant because it actually affects the way that people are reacting to it. Whether it justifies it is another thing, because there is clearly very big questions about the legality of this action under international law. You don't just walk into other sovereign countries and remove their leaders. Or if you do, you need a very good reason for doing so. That legal case is going to be played out both domestically in the States and internationally in the Security Council in the coming period. But obviously, it's a very serious thing. And if you look at the reactions of other countries, like Britain, for example, you see that they're caught between two things here. They don't want to be appearing to support Maduro. They didn't like him. They didn't think he was legitimate. But on the other hand, they have big questions about the legality and the nature of the American action. And again, what will come next in Venezuela, in the region, and more broadly in international relations as a consequence of this.
I mean, are you disappointed by the lack of criticism of the actions from the UK government? Specifically, last hour, Mike Tapp, the government minister, refused Sophie's multiple attempts to get him to say that that Trump shouldn't repeat the same sort of actions in Greenland. I mean, is that disappointing?
Well, the Greenland thing is different, and I think actually the British government should make a very clear statement and take a clear view that, you know, if the United States wants to talk to Denmark about Greenland, it should talk to a NATO ally about its interests and its concerns there, collaboratively with them, and not take unilateral action in Greenland. But I'm not surprised by the reaction of Britain and others. I'm a bit disappointed by the ambiguity that you're getting as a consequence of these multiple pressures on them. But remember, they have other fish to fry in the relationship with the United States, most specifically their dependence on America for European security, and of course, their desire to have leverage with America over Ukraine, where there's a very delicate set of negotiations ongoing.
What about the message to less friendly leaders around the world? Is it fair to make the leap that a lot of people are saying, what's going to stop China now seizing Taiwan? Because if the US can do it in their backyard, we can do it in ours.
Well, I think it's fair to make those connections. So, of course, it would weaken the American position against Putin's invasion of Ukraine, except that actually that position has been rather weakened anyway, because the Americans have not been upholding the sovereignty argument very strongly in relation to Ukraine. And if you look at China, Taiwan, you could make the case that just as the Americans expect to boss it in their hemisphere, in their sphere of influence, the implication of that is that they'll be more open to the Chinese bossing things in their own sphere of influence. And that is one of the concerns that governments like Britain have, that you're moving to a world where great powers sort of carve up the world between them in spheres of influence. And for the rest of us, that is a very dangerous situation to get into.
I guess one of the sort of pushbacks to that a lot of people are making is it's not as if Xi Jinping, to some extent, and Vladimir Putin certainly observe international rules and norms anyway. So why would this action, particularly from the US, alter their likely actions going forward?
Well, that's true, and you have to deal with the world as it is, and that's one of the things that we've all got to wake up to, because it's a very much a changing world. But nevertheless, you know, the United States, we have looked to the United States as an ally that upholds international order and an international system, and that's what we expect of the United States. And if the United States' behaviour is going to change, then we've got to understand that and react to it. And whilst we might want to preserve the relationship with America, we've got to think in the longer term about the nature of the world that will lead to, and it's going to be a much more disordered and much more dangerous world for all of us.
Bring it back to the natural resources point, and the extent to which you think it is likely to change significantly going. How hard will it be now for the US to actually lead what happens with these reserves?
Well, I think, first of all, the first question is how hard is it going to be for the US to deal with Venezuela? I mean, they haven't actually done regime change. What they've done is decapitated the regime and left the rest of it in place. And they're now going to try and run that country, it seems, sort of as a vassal state by remote control. There's a whole set of very complicated questions for them there. And then there is the question of the oil. They've said they want to get the oil flowing again. That requires a huge amount of investment. They're going to do it in the interests of Venezuela, but also of the United States. That's a long-term and very complicated program too.
So just finally, do you think they're likely to succeed on a smooth transition from former President Maduro to now the Vice President and to exercise influence over her?
I think it's far too soon to say. I mean, it's a very complicated situation. It's a big country. There are many factions in Venezuela. There are many interests in the region. There are many international players who have views on this. So it's not going to be easy for the Americans. And doing a sort of, as I say, a remote control management of a country in your region like Venezuela is a huge task for them.
Sir Simon, thanks so much. Great to see you as always. Sir Simon Fraser, former head of the UK Diplomatic Service.
Yeah, remote control management. It's such a good way of putting it. It really is fascinating stuff. We'll have more, of course, on the situation in Venezuela, more analysis, more guests. We're also going to be talking about TikTok and the number of people using social media as a source of nutrition guidance.
best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Welcome back. A reminder of the top stories this hour. Well, ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is expected to appear in a Manhattan court later today following his capture by US Special Forces over the weekend. President Donald Trump has suggested there may be military operations in other parts of South America and North America, telling reporters Colombia's president is a sick man and says an operation in Colombia sounds good.
The British teenager Charlotte Needham's been confirmed as one of the 40 people killed in that horrific fire at a Swiss bar on New Year's Eve. Hundreds of people took part in a silent procession to the scene of the tragedy in Crans-Montana.
The Prime Minister will attempt a New Year's reset with a pitch to voters this morning, focusing on how his government will bring down living costs. Sir Keir Starmer insists he will still be in the job this time next year, despite discontent among some backbenchers.
Now, next this morning, we are talking about men's mental health. Look, often the advice is to open up, to try and discuss your emotions with friends, or in other words, not be scared of your vulnerability. But our next guest has, I think, more of a nuanced look at this, that instead, actually, the stiff upper lip that everyone says is a bad thing serves many men just fine.
Let's bring in Thomas Yarrow, Professor of Anthropology, who's conducted research which shows male friendships centred around activities rather than purely on emotions are the most effective way to promote a positive state of mind. Thanks so much for joining us. Very good morning to you. So just expand on that headline point for us a little, first of all.
Good morning. So I'm not in any way opposed to men talking about their feelings and emotions. I think that's generally been a very good thing, and definitely as a counter the kind of stiff upper lip ideas that you mentioned in your introduction. But I think my point is that often that kind of confessional culture ends up missing and devaluing other elements of the ways that men connect with each other, and that often these are much more non-verbal, or they're talking about activities, shared interests, that kind of thing. So I think that could and should be a more central focus in these discussions.
I think it's really interesting. And you often see that, don't you? Like men going to a football match or playing around a golf or whatever it is. And actually that can be quite a bonding experience as well. Can you just tell us a little bit about your own story that shaped this research too? Because you've kind of got a personal backstory to this too.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a professor of anthropology, and my bigger research interest is in cultures of heritage, so really thinking about how contemporary identities and senses of who we are shaped in relation to our understandings of the past. But this particular piece of research, which was focusing on heritage steam railways, came about in the context of some personal issues that I was facing, partly in the bigger context of the lockdowns, and then that intersected with the end of a 20-year relationship, and also a diagnosis. My son had a cancer diagnosis at that time as well. So there was quite a lot going on in my own life, and this railway became a real sanctuary for me personally. So a lot of what I write about is also stuff that I was going through and thinking about myself at the time.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear about that and what you've had to endure, and it makes me think of another point, which is, as you said at the top, it's been so great the way that as a nation everyone wakes up to how serious mental health is as a problem and the way that we all talk about it. But perhaps in that process we've made it sound like it's easy to fix as well. As long as you talk about it, then in the same way that you break your leg or you have flu, there's a simple solution, which I think is really not the case. And so much of this comes down to then embracing connections and getting on with a busy life as opposed to sort of hiding from it. I mean, is that a part of what you're trying to say as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, this isn't, I'm not arguing against that opening up at all, but I do think we've tended to pathologise other forms of connection and intimacy and relationship, and to see these as kind of outdated or outmoded forms of, particularly in relation to masculinity. I think it's become common to think of these as things that we need to kind of get over or get beyond. And in my own research, I mean, I was talking to and with a lot of men involved in these kinds of activities, but also my own experience was that these kind of practical everyday interactions were very personally therapeutic as well. So yeah, I think it's not a message against opening up or talking, but just that alongside that, I think we need to value these other kinds of, often silent forms of intimacy, which stereotypically are male, but they're definitely not restricted to men.
Yeah, I guess it's both genders as well, isn't it? I mean, is your message like it's okay to kind of be yourself in a way? Like if you are someone who balks at the thought of, spilling out your feelings over a cup of tea with your friend or going to a therapist, and actually all you want to do is crack on with your hobby with your mate and maybe have a silent, be in silence for 30 minutes, that's kind of okay.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely it. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to open up about these things, but it's also okay not to open up about these things. And of course, none of us open up completely all the time to everybody anyway. So I think, we all have choices about how and who we open up to. And I think for those who feel uncomfortable doing that often it becomes an added pressure and can contribute to a sense of kind of failure. So I think, as I said, it's the broader narrative around this and the way that I think that can lead us to devalue other important kinds of connection and intimacy that are also going on.
Professor Yarrow, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's really interesting. Very interesting indeed. And look, we are staying with kind of the well-being, if you like, because lots of you are going to be searching online for some fitness inspiration in January, all those New Year's resolutions, all that kind of thing. But there are some concerns that social media is fueling confusion and anxiety around health. And new research suggests only just over 2% of nutrition advice on TikTok is accurate, which feels astonishingly slow. We're joined now by dancer and TV personality Ossie Mabuse. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Good to see you. So when I read the headline on this, it was saying that social media is making people anxious about their health. And, I think no one wants anyone to be anxious. But if it was slightly tweaked and saying that people were more aware of health issues, you could even frame it as a good thing. So I'm just expand on the data, I guess.
Yeah, for me, health is my lifestyle. I think it's something that's a part of my life. But actually, a study done by MyFitnessPal showed that over half of us get that social media algorithm anxiety. And I feel like if I'm on your phone, I don't know about you, all I see is just fads, diet fads, and how to lose weight, especially quickly in January. But then they actually saw that a study in Dublin, like you said, that over 2% are actually accurate. So I feel like when we're looking, especially the younger generation, we have to be aware and really just take our time with our health and make it more lifestyle choice and know that everything happens slow and steady.
Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it? Because just over 2% being accurate.
On TikTok.
I found that astonishing, I'll be honest.
And I don't know, maybe we, I think as women as well, we would just get all these algorithms coming our way a lot, just how to eat, what to change about ourselves. And especially with New Year's resolutions, everybody feels like there's this need to change every beginning of the year. But sometimes being yourself and then just making small little steps is the best way to go.
Do you think most people fall for it? Do you think most people believe everything as fact on social media?
I think so. I think when we've all had Christmas, we've all felt like, oh, you know what, we've had a tough year, we want to relax, maybe just relax at home and not literally watch what we're eating. January, you feel like, okay, now we're starting the new year, I'm starting fresh. So you believe whatever's coming at you because that is all you see whenever you pick your phone up.
Do you have any details on what kind of inaccurate stuff people are being given?
I mean, it's staying away from alcohol, maybe even dry January. That could be a fad itself. Juicing, that could be a trend. It's things that aren't consistent, that you have to think about long term as well.
And in terms of, I guess, the simple advice as well is being active, being healthy, generally speaking, is something to be embraced.
Moving your body, dancing.
So you're look, loads of our viewers, loads of people at home are going to recognise you obviously from Strictly, one of the most successful shows in broadcasting. And look, you look phenomenal, I have to say. Look, loving the red
this is
dress.
This is what I look like every day.
Yeah, she'll just roll out of bed this way. But what are your own kind of fitness goals, advice? Like, what would you be telling people?
I think for me, as a mom, the priority has definitely shifted. I think for me, my fitness goal is to be strong, is to move my body. I want to be healthy for my daughter because I want to spend as much time as possible with her. So when now I train my body, not like a dancer, but as somebody who literally wants to live a long life.
And what do you do then? What?
Gym, I run, Pilates, I love hot pot yoga. Love it. It's like meditating and still getting a workout, yeah. And I like being outside.
Yeah, moving your body, I guess that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I dance. I should say that's the one. I dance.
Yeah.
Well, we thank you very much for joining us today, and Happy New Year again to you.
You too.
Yeah, it's great to have you with us as well. To the weather now, because it is freezing out there. We've got loads of people, I have to say, kind of hitting the inbox with pictures of those freezing conditions as well, so it's exciting. It's all because of the polar vortex, which is bringing these Arctic conditions to Europe.
And there's still plenty of snow and ice warnings in place across the country, and an amber cold health alert as well, which has been expanded to regions of England, and it's in place until tomorrow. We asked you last hour for some pictures.
Yeah, we did. And I have to say, you have delivered. These are gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So this is a winter wonderland in Stickney in Lincolnshire. It came into the inbox today. Absolutely gorgeous. Picture there from Stickney in Lincolnshire.
This one is coming in from a viewer in Orkney in Scotland. God, we have some really great photographers.
Yeah, we do. And I have to say, Scotland is perhaps unsurprisingly one of the places where we've had an awful lot of images from. This one as well. This is snowfall in the town of Towie in Aberdeenshire. Look at that. That's a lot of snow.
There's plenty of snow there. You can definitely build a nice snowman out of that. Florence enjoying her snow this morning. Is this Florence's picture? There we go. Oh, Florence, there we go.
Love it. This is Norwich. We absolutely love a dog picture as well. Those are gorgeous. We've had more as well, and we'd love to see some more for the next hour as well. So if it's snowing where you are, send us your pics in, email us at mornings@sky.uk, or you can follow at Ridge and Frost as well.
And let's just give you the full weather forecast.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
The cold weather continues this week as northerly winds bring Arctic air and a range of wintry hazards. There are multiple weather warnings in force with amber snow warnings across northern Scotland, where frequent heavy snow showers, blizzard conditions and drifting snow could cause further disruption. Yellow snow and ice warnings cover other parts of Scotland, Ireland, Wales and England, as wintry showers of snow, sleet and hail push into windward coasts. It will be a freezing cold start with temperatures as low as minus double digits. Overnight wintry showers mean a dusting of snow for some and a risk of ice. That leads into another very cold day, though many areas will be dry and sunny once any overnight freezing fog patches lift and clear. There'll be further wintry showers today, mainly across northern and eastern Scotland, as well as Northern Ireland, eastern England, West Wales and southwest England. The showers will begin to ease this afternoon as that brisk northerly wind comes through, and cloud will increase in the far northwest.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
We've got Jackie with us. Jackie, what have you got coming up in sport?
Well, I think it's going to be quite cold and chilly and a little bit frosty at the Manchester United training ground.
Oh, very nice.
And I'm wondering, and lots of the football pundits wondering if Ruben Amorim, having talked about when my contract's up in 18 months' time, will he actually even survive? Will he even survive the week after his comments? We're going to have the very latest on the increasing tension at United, and also a couple of goals from yesterday too.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, what will you say next to Benjamin Netanyahu? In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent. I've interviewed some of America's most recognisable politicians. Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting.
Mr Walker, you're anti-abortion, but 2 women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir?
Connor, what did you say to the president? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents based in Washington, D.C. David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here.
Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism?
I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
The anger too, and the division.
Where are you from? From Sky News, UK.
Yeah.
Back up.
Mr. Navarro,
I'm allowed to ask questions, aren't I?
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Has your ego and ignorance cost Ukrainian lives?
David Cameron needs to worry about his own country, and frankly, he can kiss my ass.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody?
Free wherever you get your news.
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Do you fear a 4th indictment?
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Jackie's here, as you can see, and there's lots to discuss this morning. Jackie, before we get to some of the goals and the actions, a lot of it's the sort of fallout in the back room.
Yeah.
Staff at Manchester United.
Yeah, and we've already seen the fallout. You know, when you criticise the board, Enzo Maresco, what did he last a week, and then he was gone, and now Ruben Amorim. You know, it's going to be quite chilly, I think, at United this morning because he's got increasingly sort of annoyed, slightly irritated with what's going on behind the scenes at United. And yesterday they were held to a 1-1 draw by Leeds. Hats off to Leeds, unbeaten in 7, but United only 1 win in 5. And he, in his press conference. Seemed slightly irritated. He wanted to get stuff off his chest. He said, I'm the manager, not just the coach. And I think he feels like there's too much intrusion into what his job is. He doesn't get to maybe pick the transfers that he would want for the moment that he wants them. Also hints that his tactics as well is being questioned. He said also, you wouldn't treat Thomas Tuchel or Jose Mourinho this way, but you know, he's asking to be treated a different way. And he kind of left the media going, what does he mean?
I mean, I think you would when your performance is so bad. I think that's the slight tweak to this. But also what's interesting in context, with both Enzo Maresca, who lost his job, you know, a week or two ago at Chelsea and Amorim, they kind of had quite good November form. And when we're talking about the bad form, it's very short term.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think that Ruben Amorim has done enough to have, you know, a leg to stand on in this argument. If you're taking on the board and saying, treat me differently, look at the great job I'm doing, it would be perhaps a different story. Jamie Carragher, who quite often doesn't mince his words, was quite damning, really, after the match yesterday about Ruben Amorim.
I don't think he is in any position whatsoever
to be questioning the people who appointed him.
Why not?
Because he's not good enough. He's not good enough to be Manchester United's manager.
It's funny because Amran actually spoke about some of the commentators, didn't he? Gary Neville.
Gary Neville, yeah. But he
was going to be happy with that.
Yeah, he also said, you know, we can't sort of take this criticism personally. You know, it's kind of what they're paid to do, and we need to change ourselves if we can't deal with criticism. But, you know, clearly frustrated. And I guess the question is, will he last? He said, I'll see out my 18 months and I'll go, but I mean, will he last?
I guess the next manager
18 months.
who will be out will be Pep Guardiola.
Do you think?
No, I'm kidding. I'm giving you a chance to transition to the next
good
story.
transition, Will. Yeah, so Man City, what you want to say is Manchester City dropped points yesterday, which was huge for Arsenal. Now, they must have thought they were well on their way to 3 points when Tijani Reinders got their goal, which they held on to that lead all the way through. Chelsea made changes in the second half. Callum McFarlane, the standing coach, doing a great job. Enzo Fernandez pops up, 94 minutes, 6 minutes added on, so only 2 minutes to last after this, and got the equaliser. And you have to say they were good for it, and it was coming, and they deserved it. But my goodness, City players at the end, they knew how big that was. Pep had his head in his hands at that point. They were devastated. They were absolutely devastated. I mean, what it does mean is that Arsenal are 6 points clear of City and Aston Villa this morning. They had their chances as well, City. That's the other thing. You know, they didn't take them. Haaland had chances. Phil Foden as well. They should have put it to bed.
There was one other epic late equaliser as well yesterday.
Oh, do you want to see the Fulham?
Yeah, I just want to see the goal.
Yeah, because the goal is extraordinary. So, Fulham playing Liverpool. Liverpool think they're getting 3 points at Craven Cottage until Harrison Reed does this.
What a goal.
97th minute screamer. First goal in 3 years.
It's worth the wait.
And it was just literally worth the wait.
Another manager under pressure, sort of.
If you're going to score a goal like that, do you mean slot? If you're going to score a goal, you may as well make it like that. Yeah, it's just the sort of fall away is for Liverpool quite incredible, isn't it? We should quickly mention the cricket overnight because most people would have been asleep last night. It's the 5th test, it's day 2. England started the day in a really good position, 211 for 3, 384 all out. So did great work with the bat. Joe Root was particularly fantastic, 160. Harry Brook didn't get to his century, but he made 84, so good contribution from him. Ben Stokes out for 0, but it's been really bad for the bowlers. It's been really slow and difficult. 166 for 2, Australia are in reply going into day 3. They can still win this, but they've got to do better with the ball.
Yeah, just happy for Root, at least the one silver lining
he was amazing.
Of a terrible Ashes. We should talk darts as well, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Luke Littler probably having a well-earned day off today after winning the world title on Saturday and then, you know, fulfilling all his media duties. And he was just, I mean, talk about wrapping things up so very easily in that final against Jan van Veen. 7-1 it was, never in doubt apart from the first set, but never in doubt after that. And I mean, just amazing. I mean, the guy, he's on back-to-back world titles, 3 finals.
How old is he now?
He's 18, he's 19 this month. He picked up £1 million. That's another up-and-coming great player, actually. Ordered pizzas for everyone after this, well, his team, 150 quid's worth of pizzas. And when asked what he was going to do with his money, he said, well, I need to get some more Panini playing cards, because he's got really into them. But, you know, he does...
150 quid worth of pizza's not that much.
No, it isn't.
$1 million.
Panini playing cards as well.
They're
not
really
that generous.
Expensive.
I love Luke Littler.
But anyway, he was asked about what he wants to achieve, and, you know, he's got loads ahead of him. This is what he said.
Crazy what I've done, and obviously now I'm in the clear for #1. Obviously Phil Taylor had, I don't even know, 3,000-4,000 days at world #1. That's another bit of history that I want to create, beat Phil at the #1, and yeah, I want to stay there for as long as possible and get all these other dart players chasing me.
He is also going to take his family on holiday to Dubai in January because they go off to Bahrain mid-January to play a tournament there. And off the back of that, interestingly, go and play darts in Saudi, which will be really interesting because what kind of atmosphere are you going to get when no one's allowed to party the way they do at Ali Pali. It would just be really interesting if it affects how they play.
Well, have they changed the rules, though? Because obviously, for the Qatar World Cup, obviously, they allowed alcohol. They changed it. So
it's different rules in Saudi. I mean, it's absolutely...
But they change it. Don't they change it for the boxing matches?
No, they absolutely do
Don't
not.
they?
Nope. No alcohol whatsoever. But, I mean, that is it's a bit sad to say. It's a big part of what happens at Ali Pali.
It is the darts.
And also, this is partly why. I mean, partly because of the phenomenal players like Littler, but also because of the incredible atmosphere. People look at it and you say, I want a bit of that.
And it fires the players up as well. They really feed off that atmosphere. So all I'm saying is, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it will.
Interesting.
It really will.
Well, either way, good luck to him. Amazing close as it was there to win with such confidence. Jackie, great stuff. Thank you very much. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have all of the day's top stories, of course, ongoing reaction and all the details that you need to know following the US seizure of President Maduro from Venezuela.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome, Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Ridge and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
A very good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophie and Wilf, good morning from both of us. Happy New Year as well. Let's get to it.
Ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro will appear in a New York court later today following his capture by US Special Forces over the weekend.
Keir Starmer's New Year pledge to ease the cost of living as he insists that he will still be Prime Minister by this time next year.
A British teenager is confirmed as one of the 40 people killed in the horrific fire at the Swiss bar on New Year's Eve.
Also today, we are speaking about food fads fueled by TikTok with the Strictly star Oti Mabuse.
And we'll also be talking to Sophy about trying to get kids off smartphones.
Good morning. Happy New Year from both of us. It's a bit late, but then it is our first programme of the year, and it really is great to be back with you. But look, we've returned to the most extraordinary news story because in the early hours of Saturday, Donald Trump sent US commandos into Venezuela and captured the president.
We're going to be unpacking it all for you. Who's now running Venezuela? Could other countries be next? And why did Donald Trump do it in the first place?
Because, look, this is an image for the ages. The Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, leader of a sovereign country, captured and taken, along with his wife, from his compound in Caracas to the US. Now, he's due to appear in a New York court today, charged with drug trafficking and running what's been termed as a narco-terrorist regime. He denies the charges.
Well, this was, of course, an extraordinary operation, months in the planning, shocking in its audacity and its execution. So let's take you through how it unfolded. Well, several explosions rang out in Caracas early on Saturday.
Explosions were also heard in the states of Miranda, Aragua and La Guaira. That's according to the Venezuelan government.
Maduro was taken from the Fuerte Tijuana military base in Caracas and flown to the USS Iwo Jima warship, which was stationed in the Caribbean.
And then he was flown to New York. This was all on Saturday night. Maduro and his wife are now being held in the Metropolitan Detention Centre in Brooklyn. They're due to appear in court today on those narco-terrorism charges.
Here's our US correspondent, James Matthews, with all the details you need from New York.
Sunday night, and Donald Trump headed back to Washington. It had been a working holiday in Florida for a president working on what he does next. Aboard Air Force One, Trump talked Colombia and its president.
Now, we have a very sick neighbor. It's not a neighbor, but it's close to a neighbor, and that's Venezuela. It's very sick. Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States, and he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long?
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it very long.
So there will be an operation by the U.S. and
it sounds good to me.
It sounds like
and by the way, you have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together.
At a jail in Brooklyn, there is high security for an inmate of the highest profile. Nicolas Maduro is in the Metropolitan Detention Centre, the MDC, home to the VIP, pending his appearance in court. They brought him by boat, then by plane, a prisoner in the hands of his captors. There was a helicopter transfer and the perp walk, a president in handcuffs in the company of the co-accused, his wife, Celia Flores. In the wake of what happened on Saturday, the United States has again addressed what happens now. Donald Trump had said they'd run Venezuela. It prompted defiance from the Venezuelans left in power. From the US Secretary of State, there was a preview of discussions to come.
Ultimately, we hope this leads to a holistic transition all the way around in Venezuela, societal, political, all of that. We're in favor of all of that. But right now, we have to take the first steps, and the first steps are securing what's in the national interest of the United States and also beneficial to the people of Venezuela.
In Venezuela, the interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, has called America's action an atrocity that violates international law. It is a difficult starting point for a difficult conversation. Venezuela's military will have an influence on how its country reacts. If America wants compliance, it didn't necessarily hear it at an army news conference.
Todo el pueblo de Venezuela.
The people of Venezuela have been witness to a brutal aggression against our sovereignty. The world needs to be on guard because if it was Venezuela yesterday, it could be anywhere tomorrow.
Down with occupation.
If Nicolas Maduro could hear out of his prison window, he might have heard the sound of protest at what brought him here. Some members of the US Congress have again questioned the legality of the US action. The leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives is calling it an act of war. That view found an echo on the street. The court process for Nicolas Maduro starts with a transfer from here to a courthouse in Manhattan. He faces a number of charges, drug running among them. It's a prosecution that means much to him. It's a story that means so much more. After Venezuela, Team Trump has laid out a wish list for countries on its wrong side. It has provoked increased concern far beyond Venezuela at a president whose actions have spoken as loud as his words. James Matthews, Sky News, in New York.
Well, it's a fast-moving story, and there will be further developments today, of course, with that court hearing. But I guess the burning question so many people have is, why has Donald Trump done this? And Wilf, it's hard to move past oil.
Exactly right, Sophie. So much of this is down to Venezuela's natural resources, oil in particular. And let's just break down some of the numbers because I think they're quite striking. We've got a chart first up of oil reserves. This is proven reserves under the ground, broken down by country. Take a lot of investment, a lot of time to get this all out. But this is the breakdown by country. And as has surprised some, Venezuela has the most in the world, more than many big European, US countries, Middle Eastern countries, including Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, a lot of people think of as one of the big oil suppliers, 270 billion barrels of oil under the ground. Venezuela tops that, 300 billion. But just for some context before we go on to the next chart, Saudi Arabia, with 270 billion barrels under the ground, produces per day 10 million barrels. Let's have a look to see how much of Venezuela is actually producing per day of that huge reserve. Just 1 million barrels per day. And if you wanted to make the sort of altruistic argument from the US part as to doing this for the Venezuelan people, trying to liberate them, trying to allow the country to be all it can be, you'd point to this. You'd go back to the sort of 60s and 70s when technology to extract oil was way worse than it is today. And yet still back then they were extracting 3.5 billion barrels a day compared to the only 1 million today. And you can see when it really started to fall off a cliff. President Chavez came to power. They became a dictatorship, communist one as well at that, and Maduro a few years later. And since then, you've seen this real collapse in the level of production. If we go back to the previous chart, it's worth just mentioning that this $300 billion 300 billion barrels of oil under the ground in Venezuela is also just for a population of about 30 million. So a smaller population than Saudi, a lot smaller than some of these other Middle Eastern countries. So they really could be quite a wealthy GDP per capita country if they wanted to. I think one of the other points, just quickly to point to, is where most of these countries come from. If you took out just the US and Canada, most of the rest of them are part of OPEC, a cartel that actively tries to push the price of oil up. They limit their supply, they pull it down artificially to therefore push the price up. And if the US and its allies could extract Venezuela from that and all of their 300 billion barrels under the surface, that could really make a big difference in boosting global supply and lowering oil prices. And of course, that's something that a lot of Western leaders would like to see. As we know, the cost of living makes a big impact on elections. There's the midterms to come this year in the US. And Sophie, it'll take a hell of a long time, of course, to make a big difference to these 300 billion barrels and get them out of the ground. But the market often prices in what could come, what we might expect to come. And oil prices, I was looking just now, they're down 1% today. I mean, that's not much in the grand scheme of things, and it's just one day's move. But interesting to see that first day reaction to this news, which, of course, only started on Saturday night, is a fall in the oil price.
I'm just looking at that graphic just behind you now. It just tells its own story, I think. And are we looking... I mean, I'm just trying to kind of work out what exactly it is we're looking at. I mean, could the US go in and take Venezuela's oil?
I think we're waiting to see a lot of those details, but I don't think people's expectations is they just steal it. They just want to make sure they're in control of the process, or an ally is in control of the process with which it's released. And I think that's worth pointing to. It's not so much taking it as making sure someone else one of their biggest rivals, China, isn't able to do what they're basically now doing. Everyone knows Russia's influence in Venezuela over the last couple of decades, but since the end of the Cold War, that hasn't been too much of a concern. The last couple of years in particular, as Russia has been distracted elsewhere, China have got their claws in. There was a meeting between President Xi, President Maduro last year. China had a delegation on the ground in Venezuela very, very recently. And I think that was a big factor in the US saying, we can't let this happen. We can't essentially let China end up having the kind of control that the US now hopes they do in their backyard with that level of natural resources.
So we're trying to unpack why Donald Trump decided to move on Venezuela. We're also trying to analyse whether other countries could be next, because we know, of course, the US president has mentioned Colombia. He's also mentioned Greenland, which has led to a statement from the Danish Prime Minister calling on the US to stop the threats against a historically close ally. And the UK government's under pressure as well on its response. The Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is going to talk about that a little bit later in the House of Commons this afternoon. She's making a statement. But I asked the Home Office Minister, Mike Tapp, about an hour and a half ago, about the situation in Venezuela, but specifically about Greenland. And it is worth listening to what he did or didn't say.
We're not going to give a running commentary.
But what about Greenland?
When it comes to Greenland, Denmark and the United States, these are both NATO members, and I'm really proud that NATO has used discussion over division to ensure that these problems in the past
Can you at least just say Donald Trump should not, do the same in Greenland?
What I can say really clearly is I can't see this being any different to any previous conversations that need to be had between NATO members. And
I find it extraordinary that you can't just say flat out that Donald Trump needs to.
And I think the Venezuelan issue,
intervene on Greenland.
The Venezuelan issue
I find that extraordinary.
Is obviously different to the Greenland issue, but that's for them to have those discussions. It's for NATO to have that solid anchor to ensure that there is no division here.
Well, I then ask Sir Simon Fraser, the former head of the diplomatic service and the head of Chatham House, precisely about that exchange and what Mike Tapp did or didn't say about Greenland.
The British government should make a very clear statement and take a clear view that, if the United States wants to talk to Denmark about Greenland, it should talk to a NATO ally about its interests and its concerns there, collaboratively with them, and not take unilateral action in Greenland. But I'm not surprised by the reaction of Britain and others. I'm a bit disappointed by the ambiguity that you're getting as a consequence of these multiple pressures on them. But remember, they have other fish to fry in the relationship with the United States.
So lots to talk about, of course. A big political statement. Be interesting to see what the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says in the House of Commons as well. And we are hearing from Keir Starmer as well, aren't we? Which means we've got Mari here to discuss all of that. So he's there to talk about the cost of living, but look, he's probably going to face pressure over what his response is to Donald Trump too.
Yeah, absolutely. Realistically, people want answers. First of all, he sold himself as a human rights lawyer. And therefore, he's a legal brain, and yet he appears to have no view on the legality of the US's actions in Venezuela. I think a lot of people aren't buying that. There's also questions around if there is a UN Security Council vote, will we abstain? Now, the Times has been briefed that we would abstain. The government didn't even want to answer the question when you asked Mike Tapp about explicitly that question. But the question really is in terms of Keir Starmer's trying to do this reset around the cost of living while basically being derailed, as usual, by global events. He's going to be asked about what he thinks as a lawyer on Donald Trump's actions. And he's going to have to try and find a way to basically not answer that question. And we've also seen the former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace tweeting this morning, accusing Starmer and Labour ministers of misleading the public by saying that they're not having a view and essentially saying that the briefing that the Times was given about that is dishonest and that all of the different government departments will have already started looking into this and had their lawyers looking into this. So you've then got a former cabinet minister basically saying, I know how this works, and that's not true. So you're going to start to have this fight, I think, as the opposition starts to wake up to some of these briefings. And they're going to start saying, actually, we want to know one way or another how you think about this, because actually, US is a huge hugely close ally. We were supposed to have this special relationship, yet we were essentially none the wiser on what was happening in Venezuela, and we appear to be completely outside of the tent.
And just quickly, in terms of the broader reset, he's giving a speech fairly early in the next mid-morning kind of time. We'll hear more about his plans for the year.
Yeah, exactly. So he'll be speaking around 10 o'clock, but we won't get the clip until, I think, lunchtime. And his argument is, let's press the reset button, things are going to get better, your cost of living is going to go down, your quality of life is going to go up. You know, 2026 is the year where things start to turn around, really. And that's his pitch. So he's going to draw attention to freezing rail fares, cutting energy bills. He's already been tweeting this morning about all the wonderful things his government has done for people. The difficulty for Keir Starmer is, until people feel better off, it doesn't really matter how many times you tell them they're better off if they don't actually feel it. And so he has 4 months until the local elections, really, really consequential elections in Wales, Scotland, and loads of other places across England, in which Labour MPs are so nervous about losing their kind of foot soldiers, as they call them, in these local elections, and how that's going to then impact them in future campaigning and just morale in their constituency as well. So it's going to be a painful 4 months for Keir Starmer, and so far, if we look at the polling, it's not looking that positive.
Mark, as always, thanks so much. Now, a British teenager has been confirmed as one of the victims killed in a fire at a Swiss ski resort on New Year's Eve. Authorities say they've now identified all 40 of the victims in the tragedy at Crans-Montana. The youngest was 14.
So, 15-year-old Charlotte Nidham, she's a joint British, Israeli and French national. She previously attended Emmanuel College in Hertfordshire, and she was among the last 16 victims who were identified by Swiss police.
Well, the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has shared this message on social media. Terrible news that Charlotte Nidham has been identified as one of those killed in the Crans-Montana fire. My thoughts are with all her family and friends after this devastating loss.
Now, Sky News has gone out on the beat with Greater Manchester Police as they try and change tactics in order to try and crack down on child exploitation. So they're teaming up with social workers, going out on patrol together, and also sharing information to try and protect some of the vulnerable people that previously it's felt.
Please open the door, we're going to open it.
Greater Manchester Police want to win back public trust after independent reviews found historical failings over the force's response to child exploitation cases. Well, our home editor, Jason Farrell's with us live to tell us exactly the sort of latest developments and tactics that are now being employed.
Yeah, well, this has obviously come off the back of, as you say, some damning reports that Greater Manchester Police have had to absorb. Some of them, such as the one into Rochdale, which said that there was children left at the mercy of grooming gangs for years. And they've just been looking at ways in which they can improve and be a bit more proactive. So one of the examples is that they've been training hotel staff that when people are checking in, if there are children with an older man, for example, they might raise the alarm to the police. And we can listen to one of the phone calls that a hotel receptionist made to the police when their suspicions were raised.
Police emergency.
We've got 2 young ladies from a care home that have shown up reporting that there's a man with an underage girl that have managed to gain access to one of our rooms. We've confirmed that they gained access to the hotel. So there's a 14-year-old girl with an overage man in the hotel, and we need the police to come.
It's quite extraordinary to hear that call then led to something being found.
And 2 interesting things about it. One is that they've obviously got their intelligence from 2 children from a care home, you hear the receptionist saying, and secondly, that they've got the confidence just to call the police and say something's wrong here. And that led to, you saw the knock on the door, the police actually turning up, arresting this guy. He had possession of drugs, and he was also arrested for attempting to have sex with an underage girl. But the other aspect of it is that the police are now working with what they call a complex safeguarding hub, where they put social workers and police and also medical professionals all working in the same office. And we all know that we've done stories where we say, look, social workers and the police, they weren't communicating with each other, that's why this thing went wrong. Well, now they're actually in the same office, doing briefings together, and even kind of going out on patrol with each other. So when police see a vulnerable child and they're with a social worker, the social worker might say, yeah, I know that kid. That kid, I've met their parents, so I know the care home they're in, I know where they live, I know their history of skipping school or whatever it is. We can hear from Anthony, who's one of the social workers who we were on patrol with.
With traditional social work, we usually see them at home or in their schools, but seeing them in these environments is really important for us as social workers to understand the harms and the risks that they may come and encounter.
Yeah, so Anthony there is saying, look, you know, we're benefiting from this as well because we can see these kids, what time they're staying out late at night. We're with the police, you know, we can pass on the intelligence. And we saw that in action when we were there. And they say 270 children have been safeguarded. They've disrupted 360 criminal activities under what is called Operation Luca. And, you know, they know that they have a history here where they have failed children in the past, and they know that this has been a blind spot. And essentially they've invited us in to say, look, this is what we're trying to do to counter this.
Jason, great stuff. Thanks so much. More of Jason's reporting on the Sky News website. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll be getting the Conservatives' reaction to all of the day's news from Venezuela to the Prime Minister's speech due later.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Well, we are looking at the political reaction, of course, of Donald Trump's decision to capture the former president of Venezuela. We're getting the political reaction to that here in the UK, and we're joined now by the Shadow Home Office Minister, Matt Vickers. So I'm just going to put exactly the same question to you that I put to the government. Are you comfortable with Donald Trump sending in commandos to Venezuela and capturing the president?
The reality is this isn't a bad guy. This is a very, very bad guy. This is a brutal dictator with an illegitimate regime. He's holding his people captive. Remember that election was held. He refused to hand over power. So bad has it been that 8 million people, it's about 20% of the population, have left Venezuela as a result. This is a horrendous situation, but moreover, this is a guy who is now being charged. You know, the charges are going to be brought forward. We're going to get to see the detail of those terrorism charges, of all those things to do with drug cartels, what the evidence is and what the basis was for doing it.
Look, I don't think anyone is saying that this is a great guy here and everything was going really well in Venezuela. The question is about whether you're comfortable with Donald Trump sending in his forces to take out a leader.
Well, he's not a legitimate president. He wasn't elected. Somebody else was elected to do the job.
So is it now Donald Trump's decision to decide that and to police it around the world? This is I just think it is quite an important nuanced point here.
Well, the reality is this guy was holding a country captive. He was not a legitimate president. We're now going to see the evidence of those charges that are being brought forward.
So we're going to go around the world doing this now, and that's fine. You know, anyone that we don't think is legitimate, we can go in.
I think it's a very specific situation. I think that there is a legitimacy point about the fact that this guy was not really the president. He was holding them captive. 8 million people crossing the border, leaving that country, fleeing Venezuela. There was a realistic... Well, you're about to find the details, aren't you? You and I are both going to see the details and the reasons and the evidence that the USA has for having to undertake this in the first place. But the USA remains a huge partner to us, whether it's defence, whether it's security, whether it's intelligence, whether it's trade. We should let them have their say and we should let them tell us the evidence that's been brought forward to support the situation. But it's a good day for the globe and it's a good day for the people of Venezuela.
Do you think this is about oil?
You're about to see what's said and what isn't said.
Do you think it's not a coincidence, is it, that Venezuela is the country in the world with the most oil in the ground?
There was a brutal dictator there, illegitimately in place at the helm of that country, who was doing terrible things to the people of Venezuela. It's a good thing for the globe that he's gone. It's a good thing for the people of Venezuela. What we need to see now is a sustainable way forwards that allows the people of Venezuela to have a say over their own future.
Can I ask you about Greenland? Because I think a lot of the question now is about whether or not this is a completely isolated case or whether we should take Donald Trump's talk of other countries seriously. And he has threatened Greenland. We've had a response from the Danish Prime Minister calling on the US to stop the threats against a historically close ally and against another country and other people who have very clearly said they are not for sale. Would you condemn Donald Trump if he went in and did the same thing in Greenland?
So I don't think there is a direct comparison between the situation in Venezuela and the situation in Greenland at all. I think the reality is it's not for us to give a running commentary on the... I mean, he's got quite an interesting Twitter account, hasn't he, Donald Trump, and his team and his wife.
So will you just say explicitly then that Donald Trump should not invade Greenland?
What I will say is that Denmark is a NATO ally, that, you know, they are a NATO ally. They enjoy what comes with that. But we should also be concerned
But why won't you just say he shouldn't be threatening Greenland, he shouldn't be invading Greenland?
I'm not going to give you a running commentary on the ins and outs of Twitter.
Honestly,
but what I will
found
say...
it extraordinary that you won't just say that.
I will tell you that Denmark is a NATO ally. We should be concerned about Arctic security and then the threat of Russia, but we should be doing that with NATO allies, working with NATO allies like Denmark to look after our shared security.
You said basically exactly the same thing as Mike Tapp, the government minister, did earlier on Greenland. And I'll be honest, if I was the Danish Prime Minister listening to the response of UK politicians...
I'm telling you, they're a NATO ally. They're a NATO ally. We look after NATO allies. We work together.
So why don't you say that Donald Trump shouldn't be threatening to take over Greenland?
I'm not going to comment on his tweets, on his deputy chief of staff's wife's tweets. What I will say is that Denmark are a NATO ally. We should be looking out for them in the same way that we do for other NATO allies.
OK, you're here to talk about immigration. Once again, you know, it's a kind of important domestic story that's kind of been overshadowed a bit by international events. But what's your take on this new government move to effectively be able to seize the phones of illegal...
So, interestingly, it's another bit of a smoke screen, isn't it? That all of a sudden the government are bringing forward powers to allow agencies to seize people's phones. There was, of course, already legislation in place that allowed agencies to seize, to search electronic devices. It was hooked up to that Migration Act. But that piece of legislation also required the Home Secretary to deport people who'd arrived here illegally. The government have repealed that and have now brought this bit of tinkering around phones, which was already in place. There was already powers to seize those phones. The reality is solving the illegal migration crisis is about telling people who break into this country, people who arrive illegally, they will not be able to stay. There is nothing civilised and humane about a system that requires people to pay people smugglers to get them across the channel. We need to end the crossings. The only way to do that is to leave the ECHR, is to send a message to the globe that if you break into this country, if you come here illegally, you will not be able to stay. That is the only way to solve this problem. People at home know that. That's common sense. Send the message, put the deterrent in place.
Great to have you on the programme. As always, Matt Vickers there for the Conservative Party. Thanks very much. Well, coming up, we're going to be talking about social media. Should the UK impose an Australian-style social media ban for teenagers under the age of 16? We're going to be debating that. That's next. Welcome back. Let's get you up to speed with the news this morning. Last month, Australia banned under-16s from using social media, and now campaigners are looking for the UK to follow suit.
The UK's independent terrorism watchdog has recommended a similar ban here, with growing fears that teenagers are becoming radicalised online, though there's a lot more to it than just that.
Yeah, it's not just the radicalisation if you go on social media, of course, but lots of issues to unpack. We're joined by the actress and campaigner Sophy and the former Conservative Education Minister, Lord Nash, as well. Great to have you both with us. Sophie, do you think it should be banned then?
I think it's doing children a lot of harm in so many ways now. And I think when doctors and teachers and the police are on side for getting rid of this stuff from under-16s, you've got to listen to them.
What sort of evidence do you think is still needed to get people... I mean, it's great that we have this test case to watch from Australia, but it could take years or longer to to sort of get enough evidence and information to do it here? Do you think people should just get on with it here, or what are you looking at?
I think we should get on with it. If you've got, isn't it 468% more mental health contacts in the last 10 years for sort of 10 to 16-year-olds? The eating disorders, the radicalisation, the enticement to knife crime, the anxiety, the depression has gone absolutely through the roof. Teachers are saying children can't concentrate anymore in school. They're throwing their life chances away. As I say, when you've got top heads of all these institutions keeping our children safe, saying get rid of this stuff, and young children themselves, you know, later teenagers are saying, why the hell didn't grown-ups do something about this? It's our moral responsibility to do something now.
And Lord Nash, you obviously, you know, worked in the education department, but you've also now the chair of a multi-academy trust, so a group of schools. What kind of thing are you seeing in schools when it comes to social media?
Well, we're seeing cyberbullying a lot, and with children spending a huge amount of time on social media and going to sleep quite often in the small hours of the morning and coming into school exhausted. Teachers say that social media is the biggest issue causing disruption, and the National Education Union have their own campaign, Robbed, to raise the age limit to 16. And to your point, Will, there's an awful lot of evidence from across the world now, academic evidence, that social media is damaging our children's health.
Is there a stepping stone of outright banning smartphones in schools, or are we kind of past that point now? Is there a better solution?
I think we're past that. I mean, most sensible schools ban smartphones in some way, shape or form. And I think we're way past that. We're playing catch-up. We're now talking about the impact of AI, and we haven't even got to the basics, which is limiting social media use. All we're asking for is for teenagers in that highly sensitive period where we know they're very easily influenced and they have a very high risk profile, just to have a few more years to mature before they start using social media.
Also, if you only ban them bell to bell, children are still up all night, as John says, and they're going into school utterly shattered, eating total junk to try and stay awake. There are lots of children who aren't getting a single GCSE, and teachers put this down to social media use.
How hard? I mean, I'm taken back to this amazing... The day the Australian ban came in, Nicole Johnson, our reporter there, was with the gathered group of Australian kids, and it was quite hilarious, actually, to hear how many of them were like, well, it doesn't matter, I've already got round it, and it's not fair, etc. How hard... I mean, there's a sort of pessimistic view on this and an optimistic one. Is for kids who are 14, 15 and already kind of on it and socialised, chatting with their friends on it, it is quite harsh. That said, the next generation won't get hooked, and it might be something quite hard to enforce for 5 years, and then it'll be something that we all kind of celebrate that we've done. Do you think it will be, with your own kids in mind, impossible to enforce initially?
I think we both think it will be quite tough, but shifting the cultural norm for children not to have this damaging stuff is what we're trying to do. And obviously children will try and get round it, but if the majority are saved, that's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Is this about parents, really? Because there will be some people watching this who are like, look, the government needs to just back off. This is not actually something the government should be involved in. It's all about good parenting, and parents need to step up and, I guess, parent their own children.
I don't think it's fair on parents to have them take on these multi-billion-pound companies, and I think it will be a kind of seatbelt moment, as you say, certainly for the next generation. And in terms of getting around the age restrictions, people talk about that a lot, but actually at the moment there isn't any effective age restriction at 13. So what my amendment to the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill would do would to bring in highly effective age verification, which we have on the Online Safety Act, at 16. So it's a kind of double whammy. You get highly effective age verification and your age limit, and it would be difficult for kids to get around that.
You've obviously tabled this amendment. How much kind of political support are you getting?
A lot.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Come on, give us a bit
from
of
across the House. Well, I've got a lot of support from crossbenchers. I've got Baroness Cass, who did the NHS Gender Identity Review, who's put her name to it. Baroness Benjamin, who's a Lib Dem peer, put her name to it, and a lot of Labour MPs have privately said to me that they support this.
But almost more interesting to me is the extent to which, Lord Nash, you've had pushback or not from some of the most high-profile people in the world, because Elon Musk and others have tried to get involved in some British free speech arguments, high-profile arrests by adults. But they're not really getting very involved in this or in Australia's social media ban under 16. It's almost like this is something that can be done without too much fallout in terms of annoying big tech.
So it seems, yes.
Interesting, very interesting. What are your own, how are you in the house when it comes to enforcing social media?
Social media's fine. Neither of them are going to have it, hopefully, till they're 50. But,
can we ban it for all of us?
all the voices you were saying before when you say, shouldn't this be on parents? The people who are fighting me and John saying, nonsense, this is nanny state, that it should be on the parents, do not have 11, 12, 13-year-old children. I guarantee they don't. Children are biologically tuned to fit in with their friends. And when 99% of the class have these wretched things, there's nothing we can do. My daughter has a sort of ancient machine which doesn't do anything, but it was a sort of totemic object of going into secondary school. If I'd said no to this thing, it would have destroyed family life. I'm not exaggerating. This is a sort of seminal moment of pushing all this rubbish to 16 so parents and children can have a bit more freedom and harmony.
This might be need to be a discussion for another time because we're going to run out of time. But is your view, Sophie, that we need to ban social media for under 16s or ban smartphones? Because even other apps that aren't as addictive or don't have such bad information on it, is too much screen time also just a very broad problem?
Yes, and Sophie and I have talked about way too much screen time in schools for ed tech and digital education, which is a disaster. But social media is the thing we need to focus on first. That's the really damaging situation.
It's really interesting. There's clearly a very, very live political debate going on in this room, but also, of course, over there in Westminster as well. It's good to have you both with us explaining all that.
Thank you very much, Lord Nash and Sophie Winkleman. Now, while today is the first day back at work and school for many people across the country, it's also known as Divorce Day. On average, UK law firms experience a 25% increase in divorce inquiries in January compared to other months.
Tough Christmas, guys.
Yeah.
Well, to discuss what drives this, we're joined now by the family law expert, Michaela Wade. Michaela, 25%, that is quite a hike. What's going on?
Absolutely. It's not a surprise at all. Christmas is just the pause button. And when Christmas festivities are out of the way, that allows families, parents, people who are thinking about divorcing to think about the practicalities of divorcing, finances, co-parenting. Yeah, so it's not surprising that on Boxing Day, people are applying for divorces straight away.
So what's interesting to me is you're sort of... This isn't so much people wake up today and decide for the first time that they want to get divorced. It's almost that they've been thinking for it for a long time, but they thought we better get through Christmas, first of all.
No, absolutely. Whilst people are stirring the gravy and their stomach is doing somersaults, actually divorce never happens overnight. Divorce happens when people have been thinking about it for quite some time. And by the time you've got into Boxing Day, January, that's when they really start to have their practical head on and start thinking about what's the future going to look like.
So we know that now is a time when we're seeing increased levels of divorce inquiries and so on. But overall, the trend is the other way, right? People are getting less divorces than before, is that right?
Yes, there has been a decrease in 2025 in the last quarter, but on the whole, interestingly, it's still overall on the rise. I mean, when you think about people who are experts in family law and they're going to court, certainly my diary is looking exceedingly busy for the January.
Overall on that, I thought that divorces were going down the long-term trend as well, though, no?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. But a lot of people, that's because a lot of people aren't marrying as much as perhaps as they used to. So when people are going through a divorce, whilst overall the trend is divorces are going down, the wait time in court is definitely increasing. So what typically tends to happen is that if people are thinking of divorcing and perhaps doing so in perhaps December, January becomes very, very busy in the court diary.
I was going to ask, what are the tips, Michaela, for people to avoid divorce and keep the show on the road? But I guess you're not really the person to ask for that.
Not for business.
Business is good.
I think it's funny. I always give people the same kind of tips in January. And I always say that especially with co-parenting, because I think that's one of the biggest things that typically tends to happen, and that's the biggest advice tips that I give, because when people are divorcing, trust goes out the window. So communicating tends to be slightly different. You are looking at communicating less, but better. Especially if you're co-parenting, I tend to recommend using a parenting app. There's a great one called Click, co-parenting app, CHLIKK, which gives a bit of a built-in AI and allows parents to be able to communicate better. And let's be honest, and there's a fine line between trying to communicate better and slating the ex. So having that tool, if you will, makes life a lot easier.
You didn't quite give tips to keep together. That was tips on how to make the sort of divorce work, I guess.
Yeah.
But fair enough. That's your job, Michaela. We thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I noted that. I have to say.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Talking up business.
Weather next, because it's freezing. Because the polar vortex, which is bringing Arctic conditions to much of Europe and the UK, has been hit by that.
There's still plenty of snow and ice warnings in place across the country, and an amber cold health alert has been expanded to all regions of England, and it's in place until tomorrow. The weather is affecting travel. Among the disruption, John Lennon Airport in Liverpool is currently closed. The airport warns passengers that flights are subject to delay and cancellations and says if you're travelling today, check with your airline for the latest information.
So it's very serious, but it is also quite beautiful.
Yeah, wow.
I have to say. So this was the view in West Sussex this morning. This was sent in to us on the morning's inbox. Fields, you can see there, blanketed with snow. Look, the photographer's incredible.
Yeah, amazing, this stuff. So we've also had pictures in from other viewers, including this from Kathy. This is the seafront in Frinton-on-Sea.
It's at the beach. That's gorgeous, isn't it? And look at this one. This is Paul, who sent in a picture of the snowfall in the town of Tower in Aberdeenshire. I mean, that is a proper layer of snow. You don't see anything like that in London, I have to say. That's gorgeous.
But I think this next one from Anna in Carmarthenshire might have similar amount, even more.
Wow, look at that.
Snow.
Is there a car under there somewhere?
Somewhere under there, just to make out the shape. And Florence enjoying her morning here in the snow.
That's not Florence.
That's not Florence. Florence was a dog. We had a picture of Florence already. Where is Florence? There's Florence.
There's Florence.
And these are from Friday. I can't claim photo credit. These were taken by my wife on Friday morning.
Look
out
at
for a
that.
walk, staying at my mum's house.
That is
beautiful. I mean,
that is gorgeous.
There's been all our viewers are fantastic photographers, but
Kaylee's the best.
Kaylee's the best.
I like it. Very nice.
I am biased, of course.
We've really enjoyed the pictures. Thanks so much for sending them in this morning. Let's have a look at what the weather's up to.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
So it's going to be cold all week. There's going to be more snow as well, widespread snow, coastal gales towards the weekend, and that means amber warnings all over northern Scotland, expired at 10, but there are still lots of yellow snow and ice warnings in effect. Northern, western and eastern coastal counties most at risk. Temperatures will stay close to freezing today and below over any lying snow, with a cold wind bringing a significant wind chill as well. Mostly dry though, because there's lots of sun around.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, as you can see, Jackie's here because we're going to hit some of the sport and lots of quite exciting late action yesterday.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of exciting late action. But speaking of the cold, I think it's been quite frosty at Carrington this morning, Man United training grounds. It's interesting what's going on there. It's really interesting, and we're going to have the very latest from the Premier League, but tension really building behind the scenes at Manchester United, and it all came after his post-match press conference, Ruben Amorim, yesterday after their draw at Leeds.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Well, Jackie is here to chat all things sport. And look, there's been lots of kind of football results that really made a difference to the Premier League title race. But
what you're really saying is it made a difference to Wilf because he's an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, and Villa fans.
You're an Arsenal fan too.
Yeah, I know. All Arsenal fans super happy at what happened yesterday. But I don't think Man United fans will be, and they'll be quite perplexed this morning because the tensions seem to be really increasing there for Ruben Amorim, and he's kind of bringing it on himself with the things that he says and doesn't say in his news conference. Now, yesterday they were held by Leeds. Leeds unbeaten in 7, Man United 1 win in 5, so hats off to Leeds. Disappointed perhaps not to get the 3 points as well, Leeds. But afterwards, in his news conference, he wasn't happy. He's not been happy for a while, and he's been quite an affable character. But he said, I'm the manager, not just the coach, meaning there's too much interference in other things, you know, transfer market, targets, how they play, tactics. Well, actually, his job title is actually coach. His job title is not manager. And I suppose if you were doing super well and leading the league, you would have an opportunity to maybe have a bit of an argument with those above you in the boardroom, but perhaps he doesn't. He said it wouldn't happen to Thomas Tuchel or Jose Mourinho. So it was a bit of a bombshell press conference yesterday. The media were kind of left scratching their heads thinking, well, you're saying that you want to see out your contract and then leave, which is 18 months. Well, will you even be allowed to see out your contract? If you question those above you and there's friction there, how long do you last? I mean, ask Enzo Maresca. You lost about a week. So it's very interesting. It will be very interesting to see what happens from here. But yesterday, Jamie Carragher, after the match, was pretty scathing.
I don't think he is in any position whatsoever to be questioning the people who appointed him.
Why not?
Because he's not good enough. He's not good enough to be Manchester United's manager.
It does.
Ouch. Yeah.
But it does. But it was such an odd comment. It's like he's fishing to be fired.
Yeah, well, clearly not
to
happy.
Get the payoff.
And clearly sort of, you know, really frustrated. As were Man City yesterday and Pep Guardiola when that equalising goal went in. Man City playing Chelsea, they were leading, they were looking towards 3 points any second now, and then suddenly Enzo Fernandez pops up and does this. Chelsea were very good in that second half. They did deserve the equaliser. They got it. 94th minute, though. That must have felt so sweet and so devastating for City. And Arsenal sitting back at home, having already played, now 6 clear of City and Villa, going, thanks very much, Chelsea. That was a lovely present. 14 clear of Liverpool, Arsenal, this morning.
There was
a big old cushion.
And there was a present as well for Arsenal and the others against Liverpool. A late film.
Well, I mean, that's just something to behold. I mean, we're just looking at the Man City goalkeeper there, looking absolutely distraught. But this is great, isn't it? This is great. Harrison Reed, Fulham holding Liverpool to a 2-2 draw. And how sweet is that it was the 97th minute? He is celebrating a lot because, A, the goal was magnificent, and you don't see many of those, but he's not scored for 3 years. So that's how you do it, isn't it?
Yeah, and they were 1-0 up, then 2-1 down, so great turnaround.
I mean, Liverpool were going, 3 points around the corner, and then not at all. We should mention the cricket, actually, overnight, because it's day 2. Yesterday, 211 for 3, England very much in control. So they go in today. Joe Root has been magnificent, 160 he knocked off today. Harry Brook didn't get to his century, he was out on 84. Ben Stokes was out for a dark, but it's been bad for the bowlers in reply, 166 for 2, and the bowlers need to do better, otherwise this test will go as well.
Great to have you, Jackie. Lots more to come on Sky News, of course. And we'll be back tomorrow morning. Have a great time. Have a great New Year, of course. We're good to be back.
We'll see you tomorrow.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.